Welcome to Sundays with Omar. It's a pleasure to have you aboard again. My goodness me, it was just 7.5 hours ago that I signed off with the news around Lindsey Graham. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments, but welcome aboard, everyone. Tell Mac, and that would be also Len in the building. Good morning, Len. Happy Sunday to you. Renee, Stacy from California, ML, and many others who will be filing in here on this Sunday morning. Wherever you may be, I hope you're having a good Sunday. Goodness gracious me, bleary eyed. Um, there's a bleary eyed person sitting in front of you after all this news that's been going on. I do thank you for spending part of your Sunday morning with me. I'm going to try to keep this to under an hour. Probably need a bit more sleep. But I do hope that you had a restful night to the extent that you can in this world these days. But it's great to see you here, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. Hi, Stacy says, good morning, Omar. Hello to you, Stacy, once again. Thanks for being here again, Stacy. I believe you're one of the people who were up early this morning as well when I talked about Lindsey Graham, and I'll talk about him again in a few moments. Good morning to you, Len. Len says, hi, Omar. I finally got your notification. All right. Ree! Len, that's excellent. Len, that's really great. I know that there's been a number of issues you've encountered with this, so I'm very pleased that you finally got the notification to join. Thank you, Len. It's always great to see you here. As ever, ST has joined us, Sherelle, Mary Marshall, and numerous others here coming in on this particular chat. I'm going to get to the main topic of the day in just a few minutes' time. But I actually want to talk about one or two other things quickly before getting to Graham Platner and us. Now, the reason I talk about Graham Platner and us, I mean, forgive the self-serving sound of what I'm about to say, but I wrote an essay that I'd been working on for a number of days and had been editing literally in the last 2 or 3 days. And I released that essay, published it to Substack early this morning. So if you haven't yet read that essay, please do. It is on my Substack right now, and if you are a subscriber, whether free or paid, you may have come across it already. But it's a fairly lengthy essay. But please do not let that discourage you from reading it. Um, if I may say so, I think it's a very important read. Forgive the self-serving nature of my comment, but I do think it's a very important read, and I do think it's something that needs to be talked about a bit more. Um, Not only really Graham Platner or anything around him or the person or persons making allegations against him or about him, but about us. And I want to get into that actually in a few minutes' time. But I first want to, before I get to Graham Platner and us, again, if you haven't read that essay, please do. That I wrote and published this morning. I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, let me get to yesterday, the World Cup. Now the final four are set in the Men's World Cup. France will take on Spain. For those of you who care about any of this stuff, if you don't care, bear with me for a few short moments. France will take on Spain. That will be on Tuesday in Dallas. And on Wednesday, England will take on Argentina. That will be in Atlanta. So those are the two semifinals in the Men's World Cup. And then what will happen is that this coming Saturday, there will be the third place game, meaning the losers of both semifinals will play each other in what's called the third place game. Nobody really cares about the third place game. Nobody really cares about that. They really care, obviously, about the final. And the teams playing in the third place game do not care. They really don't. I mean, they'd rather win it, but that's what the third place game is. That takes place on Saturday, this coming Saturday. That would be the 18th of July. And then a week from today, the 19th of July, on a Sunday, there will be the World Cup final. Now, I hope that England get to that. But we will see. They've got a tough road. Of course, they take on Argentina. That's not going to be easy. We all know that. Argentina beat Switzerland yesterday. Um, I am not happy with the way FIFA does things. We already saw that with Donald Trump. And now FIFA, it seems to me, seems to have a bias in favor of Argentina. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory, but there have been a number of decisions, questionable ones, that have gone in Argentina's favor. And I'm not trying to advance or anticipate anything about the Wednesday game against England. But if you look at the game against Egypt that Argentina had, if you look at the game, Egypt, by the way, are still protesting that game. And if you look at the game last night with Switzerland, man, the referee made a terrible decision there. The VAR, video assistant reviewer, made some really questionable decisions and had a man sent off, which I think should have been withheld. Absolute joke. But anyway, I don't really want to spend all the time talking about World Cup football. In fact, there's a Wimbledon men's final going on right now as well that I haven't looked at, and I'm assuming that Yannick Sinner will win that final if he hasn't already won it against Alexander Zverev. Someone, by the way, Alexander Zverev is someone who actually has had rape allegations against him. Again, I'm going to get into Graham Platner and us in a few moments. So I just wanted to just talk about that. Also, speaking of the World Cup, there's been some, there's been I guess on the heels of some really bad news that we've been hearing about the last few days. There was a member of the South Africa men's team that appeared at the World Cup. Jaden Adams, Jayden, I think it is, Jaden Adams, 25 years old, who played in the World Cup for South Africa for the men's team literally 2 weeks ago, died in the last couple of days. So we've had these really horrific. So I really am very, very sorry to hear that news. 25 years old, no longer with us. Very, very, very sad. And there was a moment of silence yesterday for him. 25 years old, he was at this World Cup playing for South Africa. And 25 years old, now he's no longer here. It's been just a really crazy time. I'm going to read out some of your comments here. Thank you, Deanna, for joining. Len says she was going to read the story that I did on the essay I wrote on Graham Platner and us. And then you popped on. I'll read it after. Len, yeah, if you can, please do. I understand things happen. And if you can read it when you get the chance to afterwards, please do. Thank you, Len, and congratulations. Thank you for the congratulations on England winning. Len, that's appreciated. Raquel has joined us. Raquel, hello to you. Good morning, Omar, says Raquel. Raquel, good morning to you. I do hope that all is well in your world and that you are well. Thank you for joining us here on Sundays with Omar. I'm going to get into the essay that I did write. I'm not going to go and reveal everything about it. I'm going to talk more generally around the issues that are with us and this essay that I wrote, Graham Platner and Us. Len writes, I think you dropped actually one I agree with you regarding Egypt. I think Egypt actually is the one that I agree with you on, says Len. I love Wimbledon tennis, says Len. And Len has made the prediction in the World Cup men's final. She says she thinks it will be England against France. I do as well. I predicted, Len and everyone else watching, before this tournament started in the World Cup, that it would be that England would get to the semifinals. That was my prediction. And I said after that, I really don't know that they can. But I did make that prediction. I didn't make it public, but there are people who know that I made that prediction in real life, as these days, or as people say, the generation these days, IRL. I did make that prediction that England, before this tournament began in the World Cup for the men's World Cup, that England would get to the semifinals. That's my prediction. Now, here we are. They are in the semifinals, and let's see if England can go one better than that. We will see, obviously, this coming Sunday. And Len has also talked about the situation with Jaden Adams. Yeah, it's a very, very sad thing. We've had a horrible last week or so between Nolan Wells, who was found exactly 1 week ago today, found dead. That 18-year-old brother who, man, it's so heartbreaking. And I'll be working on a number of things around Nolan Wells, probably an essay around him. As soon as we get more facts coming in, the autopsy results, as far as I know, have not yet been released. There are at least two autopsies going on around Nolan Wells. There is an independent autopsy that was commissioned by the Wells family that is being paid for by Colin Kaepernick. And of course, he's also paid for the body of Nolan Wells to be flown back to Washington, D.C., where that independent autopsy is or has already been conducted. I suspect, and I don't know this for sure, that the results will be released tomorrow, Monday, July the 13th. So it's important to really uphold the Nolan Wells family in your prayers, the parents and all the rest of his family. What a monumentally horrifying and shocking situation that is really painful, that makes me angry as well as very sad. I was crying my eyes out on Friday afternoon when I saw that press conference. And as Deanna points out, and I hadn't forgotten him, but thank you, Deanna, for mentioning it, Tyler Perry paying for the expenses for the funeral. Tyler Perry, of course, the filmmaker, producer, and actor who is doing that as well. So, yes, thank you, Deanna, for that. An absolutely horrific situation, as Deanna points out. We cannot do this live today without talking and at least acknowledging Nolan Wells. Please contribute to his donations. Excuse me, let me say this properly. Please donate to his GoFundMe page. There is an official GoFundMe page for Nolan Wells. And just type in Nolan Xavier, Xavier Wells, three separate words. That's his first, middle, and last names. And the authentic GoFundMe page will say in loving memory of Nolan Xavier, or Xavier, Xavier Wells, Wells, as in Sam. And please donate something. I think the minimum donation is $5. It might be $4, but I think it's $5 is the minimum donation you can give. That maybe you have money, maybe you don't, maybe you're somewhere in between. But if ever somebody, and if ever a family in this world deserved or merited a donation of some money that you might have, it would be this family. It really would be. And so, I've always talked, and maybe you've heard this in other arenas, of people who do heinous things, who kill people, who murder people, i.e., George Zimmerman murdering, killing. Murder is is a definition for legality, legal definition. But people like George Zimmerman, who killed Trayvon Martin and didn't get any accountability at all, and then people on GoFundMe pages raising millions of dollars for him. People like Carl Rittenhouse, who literally is on camera killing two people, right? And getting millions of dollars of donations, and other people who say do heinous things or say racist things. A white woman who had called a little black boy N, and then she gets millions of dollars of donations. I don't care who it is donating to those kinds of people, whether it's conservative groups or whomever it is. But the bottom line is they're getting millions of dollars on their GoFundMe pages for doing heinous things or killing people as one of those heinous things. And I really, really think it's about time that we lift our humanity and start giving money to people whose pain is just so deep, like this family. Okay. I think we should start to do that, right? And maybe you've got some painful things going on in your personal life, in your extended family, in your family. And so I completely understand and empathize with you. Um, and so this family, the Nolan Wells family, is going through some indescribable things at the minute. And unless you've lost a child, you really don't know what they're going through in that regard. You may have experienced grief in your life. I'm not judging that. I'm not saying you haven't. I'm simply saying that what this family is going through now, losing their 18-year-old son, man, It's just horrifying. So again, yeah, there's really no words, really, is there? But there's lots of things we have to get to the bottom of, facts that will come in around the circumstances of his death. You and I both are extremely suspicious around that circumstance, and so we will get to the bottom of it as well. Happy Sunday, Angie, excuse me, Angie Decadent says that. And by the way, the answer to the question that went unanswered yesterday when I sang Angie, I asked Angie and others, but I asked Angie Decadence especially to name the person who was in the stadium yesterday afternoon watching England against Norway, who happened to have sang Angie. And I said that he's famous, and I said he belongs to a group. Who is he? Who is that person? Now, Angie did not come up with an answer, and nor did anybody else, actually, but I was really addressing it to Angie. Um, the answer to the question, who is it that sang the song Angie, and who was he watching? Who was he who was watching England yesterday during their game against Norway, which England, of course, won in extra time 2-1? The answer to the question is the Rolling Stones, and the person watching who actually sang the song was Mick Jagger. He was at the game last night, or yesterday afternoon, I should say, in Miami, watching his beloved England men's national team defeat Norway. So Mick Jagger was the answer. The song is called Angie. Of course, it's written and performed by the Rolling Stones, of course, with Mick Jagger as the lead vocalist in that song. I actually was one of my favorite songs from them is that one. So, Angie, happy Sunday to you. And Deanna says, absolutely horrific regarding Nolan Wells. Indeed, it is. It's a horrific thing. And Len has added, the video of him with his friends seemed very suspicious. Yeah, that video, as Len points out, that we've all seen now running around on social media with this argument, even though we may not be able to hear every word of that argument. And there'll certainly be video experts and audio experts who will forensically break down that video and isolate it and do all kinds of examinations on it. That video really was quite telling. And this notion that these white boys were friends of Nolan Wells. Mm. No, 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 no. It's kind of like that film Get Out. Just because you are invited was the tagline of that movie doesn't mean that you are welcome. And that's a very true statement. And there have been people on social media land and others watching who have made it very clear. Listen, if you're black, you have to really recalibrate and rethink hanging out with, so to speak. God, what a word to use, hanging out. We say it all so casually. Hanging out, or literally, in the case of black people being lynched in this country, hanging out with white people, or certainly if you're the only black person in a group of white people. We've seen this with the missing black woman who was ultimately found dead. I forget her name now, in Atlanta, I believe. I think it's Tamara or Tamra, forget her last name, who was found dead after going on a trip with white women. At least 6 white women were with her, and Tamra, or whoever her name was the only black woman in that group of people. I forget how long ago this happened, and she was found dead. Dead. And we've seen this scenario many times before. So please, to anyone who is black watching this, really reevaluate these kinds of things. I don't care how old or young you are. Okay, it's not just about 18 years. It's not only if you're 18 or 14 or 15 or 10. We've seen this over and over again in this country, and I just wanted to just put that out there. And Len, thank you. Len says she will be contributing to Nolan Wells. I really appreciate that, Len, and I know that the family of Nolan Wells will appreciate that. The husband and wife have been doing the rounds on media. Don Lemon, of course, interviewed them as well. Roland Martin has interviewed them as well. Please go and subscribe to Roland Martin on YouTube. I know Don Lemon's out there and Joy Reid, they do excellent work, but Roland Martin is the man as well. We know Don Lemon is the man. We know Joy Reid is the woman. They do excellent work, but I really want you to go and start on YouTube subscribing to Roland. He's not on Substack, but on YouTube, Roland Martin. He has a show from Monday through Friday, from 6 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern, called Roland Martin Unfiltered. Believe me, you will not get anyone covering Nolan Wells or anything around him or anything around black people and our lives and the things that affect us any better than Roland Martin. And the word unfiltered is there for a reason. He pulls no punches. He tells it like it is. He doesn't qualify anything. He tells you it's straight, kind of like me. But there's lots of people on Roland's show who also tell it straight as well. And believe me, he is a must. Now, he's on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/Roland, S as in Sam, Martin. Okay? Roland, S as in Sam, Martin. Please subscribe to him on YouTube. Phenomenal. Black owned media matters. He has something called the Black Star Network. And there's not only his show, Roland Martin Unfiltered, on that network, there's also shows by Dr. Ebony Hilton about health. There's shows about mental health and well being and, community by Roland's wife, Dr. Jackie Hood Martin. I forgot the name of the show now. I forgot the name of the show. And there's other shows called the Other Side of Change by these two young sisters who talk about issues of the day. And there's a show called The Breakdown with Brittany Noble. These are all shows by black people, black men and women, and other shows that you, whomever you are out there, need to be watching. Okay, it's an added part of your media diet. So I do appreciate you doing that. Hello, Mike Z. Thank you for joining. Jason, thank you for joining. And Deanna says, infuriating. It really is infuriating, Deanna, around Nolan Wells and the circumstances. But we are going to let me just say that again. We are going to begin to get answers. I am very confident of that, Deanna, regarding the very suspicious. It wasn't mysterious. It's beyond mysterious, as you and I would agree, Deanna. Beyond mysterious death. This is a very suspicious death. And I have my views about this. I'm sure you do as well, Deanna, and many others who are watching. This is beyond mysterious. No, this is not a Golden State Warriors shirt. Jason asked. This is a New York Knicks champion shirt. Now, oh gosh, I'm not gonna. Let me see if I can lift a little bit of it. This is, of course, from the NBA Finals championship shirt. As you see, it says New York Knicks. As you can probably see there. This is actually an oversized shirt, and you might be able to make out the bedazzled. These are the rhinestones on the. This is really quite a heavy shirt. This is what the players wore exactly 1 month ago tomorrow. June the 13th of this year was when the Knicks won the NBA championship, beating the San Antonio Spurs in Game 5 in San Antonio. I was in New York at the time. I went to Game 4. As I think many of you know, I've written about that on Substack and written about being in New York at the time where the Knicks were doing all these great things. And so this shirt, and I'm giving away things like this for paid subscribers. Not the bedazzled one, but I'm giving away shirts that look exactly like this, except for the bedazzled things on here. These shirts are extremely hard to get. Extremely hard to get. I was very fortunate to get this, to buy it literally the very next day after the Knicks had won while I was in New York. And these things are sold out. You can't get them anywhere unless you probably go on eBay or something. But right now, you cannot get this shirt. This bedazzled, the shirt with the rhinestones in it, I think you can see those, right? Very, very hard to get these shirts. So I'm going to be giving away shirts that look exactly like this, except for the rhinestones, for paid subscribers. Even if you're not a Knicks fan, if you're a paid subscriber, you could win one of these kinds of shirts. You can win this hat, as you can clearly see there. Champions. And all kinds of other goodies when I resume the giveaways in a few weeks' time. I will be resuming the giveaways for paid subscribers in a few weeks' time. So bear with me for a few weeks more. And then I'll be starting that up again, along with giveaways of books for paid subscribers, giveaways of vinyl records and CDs for paid subscribers, giveaways of movies for paid subscribers, giveaways of books, many books, as I mentioned, and other things, including apparel that is Knicks championship gear and other assorted things. So I've got a lot of these things to give away. Maybe even a hat that looks exactly like this. So there you have it. The NBA champion New York Knicks. Congratulations to my team. I am still celebrating their success and will do for the rest of this year and maybe for the rest of my days because 53 years in the making to get this championship. The last time they won was 1973. So you have to understand this has been a long, long time coming. And yeah, I'm going to celebrate this forever, as will lots, millions of other Knicks fans. I still get stopped in the streets here in San Francisco because I walk through the streets wearing Knicks gear a lot, almost on a frequent, very frequent basis. And I will still get stopped, and I'll get people come up to me and saying congratulations, which is a very nice thing to do. That people around here do that. Many people do. So anyway, I just wanted to say that to answer your question, Jason. Right on, says Raquel. Um, Jason says he's getting disconnected from chemo this morning. Jason, continued best wishes to you as well in your fight. This is something that's tremendously challenging, and your spirit and attitude are absolutely right for what you're going through. And I do wish you all the best. Judy has joined us. Hello, Judy. Angie Decadence. Yes, Mick Jagger is the one who sang the song. Chrissy, hello to you. Nice to see you, Chrissy. I think you're also on Spoutable. You may be the same Chrissy. It's great to see you here, Chrissy. Thank you very much indeed. Please become a paid subscriber, people, if you can. Would be greatly appreciated here. I'm going to get now into the main topic in just a moment, so please bear with me as well, or become a free subscriber if you can. Paula Wiley, hello to you. I finally caught you live. Thank you, Chrissy, for doing that. And it's great to see you here. Happy Sunday to all, writes Chrissy. Judith Dolan has joined us again. Judith, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Judith, it's great to see you as ever. I know that you were with us literally 8 hours ago now. Isn't it amazing? 12:30 in the morning. And I'll talk about why 12:30 in the morning Pacific time in just a moment. I've spoken with my white, this is Deanna writing this, I've spoken with my white 15-year-old daughter about Nolan Wells and that it's so important not to be a bystander. Deanna, thank you for speaking to your white 15-year-old daughter and telling her about how important it is not to be a bystander. That's a really good thing. Deanna, thank you for trusting me with that information and trusting us with that information that you have just put forth. Many people have to take a much more active role as parents, teaching their kids this, and also, and you're talking about white parents and white communities and white daughters and sons have to take an active role, a much more active role in situations like this. And in any situation in general, cannot be a bystander. The bystander theory is a really disturbing thing about us as human beings. And again, I'm going to get to some of the things that I want to talk about regarding Graham Platner and us in a moment. Um, you know, um, this is really something. Hello, Charles, by the way. Charles Quinelli has joined us. Charles, it's good to see you. Thank you for your continued support. It's greatly appreciated. And happy Sunday to you, Charles. It's great to have you here as ever. Deanna says she slept, her daughter, that is, Deanna's daughter, slept with all oh, I'm sorry, not Deanna's daughter. Deanna's talking about Tamra. I think her name is Tamra. I forget her last name. The black woman, I said, from Atlanta or wherever it was that she was from, who went on a trip with all white women. I think it was 6 or 7 or even 8 women who are all white. Tamara, or whoever her name is, and I wish someone will probably look it up for me and find it. But this is a sister, a black woman, who slept with all white women on a trip and was found dead. This black woman, Tamara, I think her name was, or Tamla, I forget her first name, was found dead the next day. No justice for her either. No accountability, no nothing. Found dead the next day. And this is a grown woman. This is not an 18-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 10-year-old. And as I said earlier, black people watching this, you really need to reevaluate going on trips with, and again, me saying this is not to blame the sister who was found dead. It was not to, it is not, and it is also not to blame Nolan Wells, who was found dead. This is a generalized directive. Please, if you are black watching me right now, I don't care how young or old you are, and it also goes for your children if you have any, or whomever, your nieces, your nephews, cousins, uncle, whomever. Please, please really reevaluate being the only black person in these trips. Reevaluate going on trips with an abundance of white people. Reevaluate all of it. I, I'm only telling you. I really want you to rethink these things. And I've read so many accounts on here and on other places of black people who have literally said that they turned down any invitations for trips or going to parties with or partying with all white people in an all white environment. Literally, I've read them on here, I've read them on other places, black men, black women who have written about over years turning down consistently being in a trip or in a party or in a gathering where they are the only one who is black in that gathering of all white people. I'm just telling you again, and when I say the Get Out situation, it's not to trivialize this, because Get Out, the movie from 2017, is an important film, um, and that film is no joke. The film by Jordan Peele. Um, Please watch that film. I mean, again, I don't mean to trivialize it because it's not trivial. That film is speaking to something real. Okay, this is not some gimmick. So I just want to say that. And Deanna, thank you. Ivelis Reyes, Ivelis, hello to you. Nice to see you. Happy Sunday. Chrissy says, and the white people wonder, and Chrissy writes, and then Chrissy is a white woman. I know that for a fact, because I've seen her on other platforms, Spoutable, which I would like you to join. And at least her avatar suggests that she's a white woman. And she writes, white people wonder why black people side eye us all the time. R.I.P. Nolan. Thank you, Chrissy, for that comment. I think Chrissy's comment speaks for itself and speaks loudly. Um, and Sherry and Jason says that Sherry Dunn and Danielle Moody say a black person will never hang themselves. Yeah, listen, that's not what black people do. Is it to say that black people have never taken their own lives? No, it is not to say that. But it is to say that black people will never hang themselves. There's a big difference. And Sherry Dunn and Danielle Moody are absolutely correct. We as black people do not do that. We don't. And there have been stories over the last year about black people being found hanged in Mississippi and found hanged in other places in the country, and then white law enforcement authorities conveniently refusing to investigate or taking, with all deliberate speed, if you will, taking their sweet time to investigate or not investigate the circumstances around the death of black people who were found hanging, or suggesting that it's suicide. Always this quick rush to judgment when a black person is found hanging from a tree, in this country. But all of a sudden, when it's someone white, there's no rushing or refusing to investigate. There's a rush to find out whoever did it. And in Mississippi, there needs to be an independent investigation, like the family says, a thorough investigation, and we will see if that ever happens. So we will have to keep pushing. All of us will have to keep pushing the word out around Nolan Wells, pushing the word out about getting the investigation done, donating to his family and uplifting the family, and sending out these thoughts to the family. And also, of course, on your social media feeds, your Substacks, and all the rest of it, keep reminding your followers and your subscribers about Nolan Wells and about getting accountability for him, and also, obviously, demanding a full, thorough, and independent investigation. That's what we all have the power to do, we all should be doing that on our social media accounts and our Substack accounts. That does not cost a thing except for time, which, please, you can spend a little time putting that out there on your Substack or on your social media. Thank you very much for that. Um, a lot of people are very suspicious around Nolan Wells. It's murder, writes Jason. Good morning, all, writes Coffee is Life. I'm getting now to these things now, and I'll start to read about this with Lindsey Graham. So is it true Lindsey Graham died to ask Coffee is Life? That is the last thing I'm going to get to before I get to Graham Platner and us. Yes, it is very true. This was not a belated April Fool's joke. Lindsey Graham passed away on Saturday at the age of 71. The statement that was coming through on his social media on X said that his family wishes people to just hold them in their prayers at this time, and that Lindsey Graham died of a brief and, quote, brief and sudden illness, unquote. So, yes, it is true. Lindsey Graham was 71 years old. I got on Substack here just over 8.5 hours ago and wrote this and came on here, and you may not have yet seen that video, but I did maybe a half hour or so video on that immediate news. At the time I was editing the story, the essay, excuse me, that I'm about to kind of talk around, called Graham Platner and Us. And if you have not yet read that essay, it's a fairly lengthy one. Please do. I will warn you that that essay is and will be triggering for survivors, and is explicit, and you may find it disturbing to read. But that advisory and warning is on top of the essay as well, so that you are fully warned of that before you read on. So um, yes, I was editing that essay early in the early part of this morning and late last night, uh, here on the West Coast, here in San Francisco, when that news of Lindsey Graham came through on my phone. I was shocked, absolutely shocked, as many of you were. So I decided to just take to Substack because I just wanted to express my shock. Um, I sat with that shock, but I wanted to talk about it. And I made it very clear early this morning that I'm not going to be on here, at least certainly, and certainly not in the aftermath of that immediate news, to uh, pile on Lindsey Graham. As I said 8.5 hours plus ago, that yes, there are lots of things about Lindsey Graham that I was not a fan of, I didn't agree with, but again, at this hour, um, people on social media who were demonizing him and saying that they were glad he was not here, I mean, stuff like that is just beyond the pale, and I don't ever traffic in that kind of nonsense or cruelty. I did offer my condolences to Lindsey Graham's family. I think, listen, the man had a right to live, okay? And as I said a few hours ago on my previous Substack video live, excuse me, I also said that I can have the humanity, and we can have the humanity enough to at least wish his family deepest condolences, send our condolences to his family. That doesn't mean you have to agree with anything he said, or you even have to like him, but at least as a human being, you have that kind of compassion for the fact that a family has lost somebody they care about. I mean, that's how I look at this. I know everyone has their different views about this, but from human to human, um, I at least have that in me to afford him, his family, some, um, you know, some compassion. Everybody is not going to agree with what I just said, but that is where I go as far as that is concerned. Yeah, it's a stunning thing. I think that people are genuinely shocked. Um, about Lindsey Graham, and CNN, I only watched them because there was no one else talking about this early in the morning. This morning, nobody else. I mean, BBC did something on it, but CNN was going on, and I turned it off. Obviously, I don't watch CNN generally at all, but because they were the only, I just said, let me go and look and see if they've said anything, and of course they did. They were playing audio of a 911 call, and which I thought was kind of tacky to be playing that stuff. And the words heart attack or cardiac arrest, rather, came up in the audio. And then you had someone trying to analyze that. It's like, dude, the guy just died less than 3 hours ago, mate. Like less than 2 hours ago, and you already do. It's just that's the kind of stuff that I can do without. I don't care who it is. It's just a joke. It's not a joke, but it's just I think disrespectful to be playing 911 audio of someone talking about cardiac arrest, and then the person from CNN coming on going, "Oh, well, we don't know for sure if it was cardiac arrest, excuse me, but you know what? Those words were used," and it's like, oh Christ, there is no privacy anymore. There just isn't. And I know he was someone who was famous or infamous, but my God, we just don't have any. Some of us can be downright monstrous in this world. Um, yeah, the New York Knicks winning rate, Raquel. You want a shirt like you want? Well, I'm giving away at least 3 shirts to paid subscribers. So you have to be a paid subscriber though, in order to have a chance to win one of these shirts. Again, it's not going to be this particular shirt with the rhinestones, but there's going to be shirts similar to this that just don't have the rhinestones on them that I am giving away for paid subscribers. And if you're not a Knicks fan, still, I'm giving these things away. So maybe you can give them to a Knicks fan that you may know, or keep it for posterity for yourself or someone else that you love and care about. So that's what I'm doing. Thank you very much, Raquel. Um, so, um, people, I know there are people talking about the Golden State Warriors. I am not a fan of theirs. I am a fan of the New York Knicks, always have been for many decades. But yes, here in San Francisco, yes, it's definitely the home of the Golden State Warriors, who used to be in Oakland, California, but moved to San Francisco several years ago. Millie Jones Cowles, hello. Night Owl, Judith Dolan, yes, you are, as am I. I'm really, goodness me, I'm not, well, maybe that's not true. I am a night owl at heart. But sleep is so important, and I've not been getting any of that lately with the writing and all the rest of it. But thank you, Judith, for joining. Georgie Palmer has joined us as well. Tamla Horsford. Thank you, Deanna. Tamla Horsford. Thank you, Deanna. Really appreciate that from you. Tamla, Tamla, and Deanna, I thank you for being the first one to point it out. Tamla Horsford. It's a horrible story. Horrible. Horrible. And no more words to be said about that. Um, Let me get now to what I really want to get to. Okay. Lindsey Graham, and thank you, Chrissy, for your kind remarks. She says she will read the essay that I wrote on Graham Platner later. I want to just say one other quick thing here about Lindsey Graham. He had celebrated his 71st birthday just a few days ago. He also was literally, this is really unreal, on Friday, just 2 days ago, he was literally in Ukraine with Vladimir Zelensky. Absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I keep saying this here, folks. Tomorrow is promised to nobody, and time is precious. I've been saying this for a few weeks. I've been saying this forever, really, but I've really hammered this home lately. Time is everything. You really have to think about your time, who you're spending it with, what you do with your time. You never, ever know. And Lindsey Graham, 71, young, that's a young age, gone. The South African footballer that I talked about earlier, Jaden Adams, who literally was playing in the Men's World Cup this year, just 2 weeks ago, 25 years old, no longer with us. An MP, a former member of parliament in the UK, Anne Widdecombe, 78, 78, 78, 78 years old, murdered in her own home just a few days ago. Literally was on some TV show about 2 hours before she was murdered. Apparently, 3 hours before she was murdered. Nolan Wells, 18, right? You, people, please, this is so important. I want you to connect with the people that you love and care about in this world and stay in touch with those people. Because again, please, you never know. Okay? Call somebody that you've not spoken to, call somebody that you're thinking of, connect with people that you care about. Okay, this this sequence of events, and also a British news anchor, who I really respected. His name is Dermot. He's from Ireland originally, a Brit, Dermot Murnaghan of Sky News died yesterday uh, at 68 of prostate cancer, stage 4. Folks, 68's young. 78 to me is young. Do not, do not undervalue what I'm saying about spending time with the people you care about. And please get checked. I said this in the Substack earlier this morning. Please get checked. I know the health care system in this country is horrible. People in this chat have experienced these things and going through some really life challenging things. And to people out there, okay, this healthcare system in this country is awful. I'm saying to you, please get checked. I'm saying to you, please do not be afraid to go to a doctor. I'm saying to you, do a mammogram. I'm saying to you, do a PSA for prostate cancer. I'm saying to you, go and get checked. Go and get a colonoscopy. Go and get a mammogram. Go and do self exams on yourself in the shower. I'm not joking. Whether it's testicular, whether it's for breast, I'm not joking. This is very, very serious. And people don't like to talk about these kinds of things, but I'm going to talk about these kinds of things. You're not going to get lots of people on Substack necessarily talking about things like this, but they have to be talked about. So please, please get checked, okay? You may be reluctant to do it. There are men and women who are reluctant to go to doctors for many reasons, cost, fear, whatever it is. But I am telling you, your health is more important than anything else. And me saying this is not to cast anything about Lindsey Graham or anyone else. It's just a reminder. Listen, that's the first thing I took away from Lindsey Graham, hearing about Lindsey Graham. It's the first thing I took away from all these people in the last week who have been killed, or who have turned up dead, or who have been murdered in the case of Anne Widdecombe in the United Kingdom. And she wasn't a particularly nice person either, but I was still horrified to hear that she was murdered, that the UK police have opened up a murder investigation and looking for a white male who is on suspicion of murder. And they arrested one white guy last week, white male, and then they released him because he had nothing to do with this. And so they're still looking for a white man in England who they think may have done this to Anne Widdecombe. But all of these events, Bonnie Tyler passing away last week, she sang the song Total Eclipse of the Heart. I think she was from Wales. And all of this is a reminder, folks, to check your health. All right, please do that. Thank you. Susan Huffland has joined us as well. Penelope West has joined us. Thank you so much, Penelope. Rob. Preventative health checks, Chrissy reminds us, please. And if you don't, writes Chrissy, feel quite right. Check with your doctor, Chrissy. Thank you for amplifying that as well. Thank you very much, Jason, for your courage. Chrissy says, I know of several people who had signs of something wrong but waited until it was too late and ended up having end-stage colon cancer, both men, unfortunately, in the cases that Chrissy is citing. Chrissy, I'm really sorry to hear about that. Jason, again, thank you for your courage and for your continued bravery and your fight in the things that you are experiencing right now. Keep on fighting. We are with you, Jason. Thank you very much indeed for spending your time here. You really don't have to be spending time watching yours truly, but thank you for doing so. It is truly appreciated by me. Now, I want to get to gosh, I spent almost an hour here. I didn't expect that I was going to spend an hour on things non-related to Graham Platner and us. But the reason I want to get to that now, because I did write an essay on Graham Platner and us. And now people have already forgotten about Graham Platner. And for that matter, have already forgotten about Jenny Racico. May not be pronouncing her last name properly, but there he goes. I think it's a French last name. Racicot as in Thomas. I'm not necessarily going to talk about the specifics of the allegations And I'm not necessarily really going to talk about the essay that I wrote, but I do urge you to read the essay. I've posted it on my Substack. Please do. It's lengthy, but it's necessary. I tried to edit it down as much as I could, but I think it needs to be lengthy. You know, we know there's stories out there about how Americans don't read anymore. Many Americans don't read books anymore. They only read social media posts these days. The Atlantic did a lengthy article on that. That people don't do long form reading anymore, much less than they used to. And people don't read books anymore. There are people who just don't read books. I mean, I've only read 3 books this year. For me, that's a very small number, but I'm a very busy, active person, and I'm sure you are as well. And so it's not easy. And I'm talking about not reading on a Kindle. I'm one of the old fashioned folks who read books, literally books like what you see here, right? Actual books in my hand. And some people can't do that, and there's legitimate reasons why they can't. People who may have issues with sight, may have a disability, so they can't see, so they have to do an audiobook. I'm not casting any aspersions on anyone. I'm just saying, just in general, Americans just don't read anymore. You know, of course, there are Americans who read, but many millions of Americans do not. Many people, millions of people in this country don't read. And Len agrees. That is true, unfortunately. Yeah, it is, Len. Absolutely. Um, so please read that essay. Um, and I'm going to be self-indulgent here and say to you, please read the essay. I think it's a must read. It's a necessary read. And as I've said, and I'm glad that you love books as well, Len. That's fantastic. Thanks for that. Um, I've said this is people have forgotten about Graham Platner already. And what we do in America so well, better than almost any other place on earth, is dispose of people. Now, I'm not empathizing with Graham Platner at all. I'm glad he's out the race. It's necessary that he had to go, and all the rest of it. What I am saying is that our culture, this culture in white society, if you will, but American society at large, loves to dispose of people. You know, oh, he's out, get him out, boom, get him out, boom. Fine. I was one of the people who is part of that disposing. Maybe you are as well. But we do this without digging underneath. We do this without really examining the issues that bring about a Graham Platner. There is a book. I've talked about this book before. I've shown this book before, and I'm going to show it here again. A book called Rethinking Sex, A Provocation by Christine Emba. E-M as in Mike, B-A. Now, Christine Emba is a sister. She's a black woman who used to write with the Washington Post. She may still do so. Here is a photograph of her. Here's the wonderful Christine Emba, this sister here. This book is a must read. And I do mention this book on a couple of occasions in the essay. And one of the things that virtually nobody that I've read, and I've read a number of people, whether it's Rebecca Traister, the white feminist, whether it is in a number of people, none of these people that I have read in various places get into the issues around Graham Platner and around interactions with women, men's interactions with women that they are familiar with. There are men in this country and in around the world, but in this country, who interact with women that they know and interact sexually with those women and women interacting sexually with those men. And they are known to each other. And Graham Platner and Jenny Rasico, again, forgive my mispronunciation of her last name, had a relationship that spanned at least 2 or 3 years. Now, Graham Platner does not deny that, okay? but he does deny the allegations. And what I am saying here is that we threw out Platner and, quite frankly, also threw out the survivor or the alleged survivor, Jenny Rasico. Nobody's talking about them now. Nobody. No one's talking about the accusers of Eric Swalwell. Anybody lately heard anything or said anything around the at least two women who accused Eric Swalwell back in April? Not a word. You've not heard of them. You've forgotten about them, probably. And the thing I'm trying to get to here, and there are people in this chat watching me who are survivors, and I will always stand with survivors, always. Here's what I'm getting to. There are clear-cut things, horrors like rape, and then there also are situations where people who've had an interaction or a familiarity with each other also get involved with things, and there can be situations where rape comes out of that. After all, and I point this out in my essay, most of the rapes that occur in this country, and again, what I'm about to say is going to probably be triggering for some survivors in here. So I'm going to be as sensitive and empathetic as I can be. I'm just trying to explain that you may find some of what I'm talking about to be triggering. So I do want you to please be warned about that. Most of the rapes that take place in this country, or probably any country, are by people who are known to the survivor. This whole old-fashioned idea that a woman, because it's usually a woman, and it's usually a man committing the act of rape, that somehow it's some stranger in the bushes, and watch out, look out, it's some stranger that's going to jump. Listen, has that happened? Of course it has. But the real truth that people in the corporate news media and the culture, whatever that is, in this country, the US of A, love to avoid is that, except for the survivors, because the survivors do not avoid this, is that most of the rape that takes place in this country is by someone that survivor knows. Graham Platner had a relationship. He was married in 2023 to the woman he's presently with, right? In 2019, he had met Jenny Rasico on some dating app or some bullshit like that. And they had a relationship on again, off again, right? Sometimes there was consent, in the words of Jenny Rasico. Sometimes there was not, or at least in this case in 2021, there was not, right? And this is more the truth about the sexual interactions between men and women than it is not the truth, right? There are people who, whether they're married, whether they're in relationships, whether they're partners, whomever, who will have periods of time where, yeah, things will be consensual. And then there might be a time when that's not the case and it's downright rape. And it's very easy for people, here's my point, for people in the media to call Graham Platten all kinds of things. Listen, I don't know for a fact that he did this. I do believe Jenny Rasico, but I can actually hold two thoughts in my head that you might think are contradictory, but I don't think are contradictory. I can certainly believe Jenny Rasico's stories and her allegations about what happened to her, what she says happened. And I can also say that I don't know for a fact that he did it because it's not been proven in a court of law. I can hold those two thoughts in my head because both of those thoughts are actually the truth. These charges have not been brought against him, right? There's not been any charges brought against him, right? Statute of limitations has probably run out. That's part of the reason. And also part of the reason is what Jenny Rasico said to Politico and elsewhere, is that she was afraid. She was ambivalent. She had all kinds of which is what women who are survivors or alleged survivors say. That is completely common, that there is some kind of ambivalence, right? About should I bring this, should I not? Are they going to believe me? Because this society does not believe any survivor, just does not. And you've got authorities that actually make survivors somehow feel that it was their fault for being raped. How many times have we seen this in our society? How many times, dear listener, have you read about stories where a woman actually does go to the police and then the police ask her, well, what were you wearing? How many drinks did you have? Did you go up to his hotel room? What time did you go there? Did you go there late at night? Was it 3 a.m.? Was it 2 a.m.? We've had women even say things like this. Well, she went up there at 3 a.m. What did she expect? Ah, seriously. And you know this is true, what I'm saying to you. This happened with Mike Tyson and Desiree Washington, the black woman that Mike Tyson was found guilty of raping in Indiana back in 1991 and 92. That was the whole thing, wasn't it? That you had some women saying, well, what did she expect was going to happen? So I write this essay, and again, I'm not really giving away anything, and because I really want you to read the essay. This is not just about Graham Platner. This is about us. Yeah, people, maybe you're in this chat here, who have said, well, the timing is suspicious. And I did say this in the essay. When's the right time for a survivor to come forward? Well, when's the right time? Is there a right time? And why should you, whoever you are out there, start pontificating about why she should have come out earlier or why didn't she do this? Or it's a monstrous thing for us to do. You can choose to believe Jenny Rasico or not, right? That's your right. You have a right to choose what I'm not, if you don't believe her, I personally am not going to punish you for that. You have a right to not believe her. You have a right to not believe Graham Platner, right? You have a right to believe him or not believe him. You have a right to believe her or not believe her. But this is larger than Graham Platner and Jenny Rasico. This is about Graham Platner and us and our attitudes. Rape happens in broad daylight, writes Coffee is Life. Coffee is life. I agree with you 125%. And our attitudes around rape are really revealing. And so the media, the pundits, they never examine these issues on a serious level. They don't examine either the gray areas around people who know each other, who clearly have had relationships, intimate relationships, sexual relationships, and they don't dig beneath the surface. Unlike authors like Christine Ember, who actually do, right? And there are others who do, but this book to me is a really important one for men and women, for anyone to read. And there are others, but this one is the one, right? This book needs to be read. I may give away a copy of this for paid subscribers. That will probably be part of one of my giveaways in the future, right? So it pays to be a paid subscriber. But people don't get to the heart of these things. Don't get to the issues. What they do instead is titillate. And there are people who write these stories who just write these stories about rape, for example, and they present these things in such a salacious way that it is monstrous and disgusting and insensitive at the very least. It's a shocking thing. Is Life writes, I think coming forward immediately helps to preserve evidence for prosecution purposes, but if a woman If a person is too traumatized to disclose it, you have to respect that too. Absolutely. Who are we to, I agree, coffee is life. Who are we to judge? This is someone's uniquely personal, painful experience. Who are we to judge? Who are we to judge that? And we can be very monstrous, some of us, in our assessments. We can be extremely monstrous. And so, very often, what the culture does, which is really a rape culture, folks, is dance around things, put out salacious things. Politico did that in their story. I mean, do we really need to know some of these deeply personal things? What and not to put out anything about challenging this behavior and challenging this culture and the fact that there's millions of Graham Platners and millions of Jenny Rassicos and millions of other survivors out here and people who we don't know who commit these acts every day. Now, again, Graham Plattner has not been proven guilty in a court of law. There's been no charges put against him. Okay, I'm going to keep reminding you of this. There are people all over this world, people who are famous, people who are not famous. You can think of all the people in the world that you know of or have heard of, and then there's people like your next door neighbors. There's people like your uncle. There's people like your husband. There's people like your cousin or your parents, for God's sakes, who you know of who've done these things. Maybe to you, maybe to someone else. School teachers, priests. This stuff is not just Graham Plattner. It's so fashionable for us to just, oh, Graham Plattner, and just move on and not challenge ourselves or each other. It's so fashionable. And by not challenging ourselves and interiorizing the behaviors and looking into ourselves and being introspective, we do ourselves a grandiose disservice. We truly do. And I really think it's important that we start to look at our own behavior with people that we have had sexual relationships with, whether familiar or unfamiliar, but particularly familiar, and ask ourselves these things. I mean, I've done some digging on this for myself personally, you know, and asking myself, well, what about that? What about this? And going, how do I know that this person didn't think that this was whatever it might have been, right? You know, and I would never ever do any of these things. But I do reflect and go, wait a minute. And I'm talking about weeks afterwards. I've reflected in the past about things like this. But it's so important to communicate to that person, whether they're your spouse, whether they're someone that you don't know, someone that you do know, someone that you're getting to know. Communication is so important. Consent. And consent doesn't just start at the beginning, it goes through stages throughout that interaction. And sometimes those things can be put on hold, and then the nature and the dynamic changes, and then consent is withdrawn. And at that point, if the other person does not stop, then that becomes rape or sexual assault of some kind, or rape. It becomes rape. And so there needs to be education. And so when I see these pundits, when I see people or hear of people like Lawrence O'Donnell, throwing eggs at, basically, metaphorically throwing eggs at Graham Plattner, I'm sorry, that just doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't. Doesn't help him. Doesn't help the society. What are you doing? I don't know what that means. Because it's so, and again, I'm not saying that the guy doesn't deserve to have eggs thrown at him. But again, let me reiterate, the guy has not been charged and has not been found guilty in a court of law. This is all court of public opinion. But Graham Platner is not the issue. It's the larger issue of the society of us. I'm going to read out your comments. Again, I want to really continue to give the sensitivity that again, without sounding like I'm being completely self-indulgent and self-righteous, I want to give I'm being very sincere. I want to give the continued sensitivity that I've always shown to people who are survivors of sexual assault, survivors of rape, and people who have had very close calls with it, because they're people who've had very close calls with it. And that doesn't mean that they're not survivors. So, I want to read these comments out with the greatest sensitivity. And I do want to warn you in case you're watching this later, because people are watching this live in the chat have seen these comments, but I'm going to read them out to those of you who are watching this later on when it's not been live. Len writes, it's always the woman's fault. She provoked it. Now, Len is talking about how this society that we live in, men and some women, view this particular situation. When you're talking about rape, which is an act of violence, folks, remember that. It's nothing to do with sex. Nothing at all. This is about violence. And it rips apart and shatters a human being. And there are people in this chat who are survivors. I'm going to read, they have put this out here on the platform. So I am going to read it, okay? Because any comment that gets put out is an assent or a permission for me to read. And I do even sometimes still do check in and ask. But because this is a chat, and people have volunteered this information, I'm going to read it with the greatest sensitivity. Chrissy writes, blaming the victim has got to end. I'm a DV survivor. DV is domestic violence. And many have said, why didn't I leave earlier? I'm also an SA survivor. That stands for sexual assault. I'm also an SA survivor, writes Chrissy, that never came forward because of how I would be viewed. Chrissy, thank you very much for trusting me and trusting us with the information that you have put forth. And I am so very sorry that this happened to you and that you've experienced these horrors and traumas. I really empathize, and I'm so very sorry. Chrissy, thank you for trusting me with that information. Trust is a very important thing. I take it extremely seriously. And I'm very, very sorry that that has happened to you. Chrissy, thank you. I want to read out some more comments around these things, around these horrific things that I've talked about here. Stephanie Wilson, thank you for joining as well. And Chrissy adds, and yes, a woman can be sexually assaulted by your husband. Yes. Chrissy, that is absolutely, and obviously, Chrissy, you've talked about this yourself. Yeah, this is something that continues. This is something that's been going on for centuries, for centuries. And remember, folks, in this country, there were laws allowing for men to rape the women that they were married to. Laws that were on the books in this country, including here in California, up into the mid 1970s, that allowed for men to rape the women they were married to. Yeah, up into the mid to late 1970s. See, that's the thing, isn't it? That the Lawrence O'Donnells of the world, and I am name checking him, okay? Whether you like him or not, I don't watch him, but I know someone who does watch him, and that person made it very clear to me that he was engaging in just the peanut gallery stuff, throwing it at Graham Platner, but not talking about the underlying issues that bring us a Graham Platner, or a system that brings us a Graham Platner, or a rape culture that brings us. And again, he's not been proven guilty. But what I'm saying to you is look at the system that we have in this world, in this country, this patriarchal system. So it's very easy to point at one or two people, and I'm not saying they should not be pointed at, But I think that we need to expand the lens a lot more, right? And actually look at your next door neighbor. I'm not trying to say be suspicious of everyone, but I am saying be discerning of everyone and be aware and look at people down your block, down your street, in your apartment building, in your neighborhood, right? Because that at the end of the day is something that this is the thing that goes on every day, isn't it? At the end of the day. Coffee is Life sends commiserations to Chrissy as well. And it's been 11 years, writes Chrissy, since we got out, and life is so much better, but it takes a lot of hard work through therapy, but it will also always be triggered by certain things. All the support here for Chrissy. Thank you, Angie Decadence, as well. Um, when you're in a community that trusts, and obviously this community that is here on this chat has chosen to trust the people in the chat and also trust yours truly as well. These kinds of conversations, however uncomfortable and disturbing they may be, bring about, I think, a very sincere um, wellspring of compassion and support. And that's what we need. There are lots of people who are in pain. Some people are deeply, it's a very personal thing and they don't want to come forward. And some people may be in a measure of denial. Some people are still maybe, I don't even want to, you shouldn't use the word still. There are people who have had these things happen to them 50 years ago. And it's been extremely painful. They won't look at it. And I'm not condemning that at all. I completely understand why that would be just something that cannot be faced. So I do say, and Chrissy said, I am fine with you reading out loud. Thank you, Chrissy. That comment was earlier. But I do these kinds of episodes on this Substack Live every now and again because I really think that obviously men have to take major, major responsibility and start to really look at this culture and look at themselves and examine themselves and ask themselves really tough but important questions about a lot of things that they do or contribute to or actually have actually architected. That forces a lot of work, whether it's therapy work, whether it's various other things. And again, it's really fashionable to talk about Graham Platner as if he's some kind of outlier, which I can most assure you he is not. Survivors in this chat can most assure you, again, Graham Platner has not been convicted in a court of law and has not been charged. But let's look at other people that we know of in this world. And I can name them, you could name them, you know who they are. People in power, people not in power, people whomever, right? Whom I'm telling you, folks, who, hey, we listen. You know who they are, right? But this is the thing. This is what happens. And then the other thing is, there's more nuance, right? There's things like rape that are so evil and clear cut, and then there's more nuanced things. There are people who, on a far less heinous level, um, are attracted to people like a Graham Platner, right? There are people in the world, in your everyday life, maybe you, who is attracted to a certain kind of man, is attracted to a certain kind of woman, is attracted to a certain kind of sexual practice. You have your own deeply, deeply personal, because again, there's rape over here, and then over this way, or a little bit away from rape, there is this, right? And what happens in this is different from what happens in that. And then there's this whole gray area in between that people, Lawrence O'Donnell, again, I'm going to name check him, and others won't examine, right? Won't go there in this area over here, over this way. They won't go there. They won't examine that. They won't examine what we do in our bedrooms because, yes, it's nobody's bloody business, right? And the thing is, though, Politico can put out very graphic information about what Graham Platner did, according to Jenny Rasico, right? But yet, at the same time, they won't examine that area over there, right? And how the two of them knew each other for 2 years. And again, That doesn't justify anything that may have happened to Jenny Rassica. What I'm saying is that there is a lack of willingness of the culture and of us to go deep and look at our own practices and behaviors. And so we can throw tomatoes at these people in public, right, as a way not to also examine some of the things about ourselves where we are going, you know, there's a lot of things that I know that the word conveniently that gets used is consenting. The word consenting adults do whatever they do in the bedroom. Well, what is whatever they do? What is that? Without, it's not my business. But what people, when people say, and people on Substack who I follow who say this, consenting adults do whatever they do. Okay, so whatever they do is, that's the thing that people don't want to touch. James Baldwin once wrote this in his unfinished manuscript, Remember This House, from 1978. And one of the things he said was, Americans are so terrified of their private selves. And we have, and that's a quote. Right? And there's other things that I actually quote some more from that manuscript and from a documentary called I Am Not Your Negro in the essay. So please read the essay that I wrote, Graham Platner and Us. But the point I'm making here is that this country already has a very puritanical, and again, I'm now moving away from specifically rape here. I want to make that extremely clear. And I'm moving now toward this other area that's over here, where Americans and American society has a very puritanical view of sex and sexual engagement and intimacy and all these things. It's a very underdeveloped view. It's a very immature view. And it's a view shrouded in shame and shrouded in this and nervousness and all uptight. And there are other nations that aren't as uptight as this one is. And so that's why we can feel that we can reflexively throw tomatoes at other people. And we can throw tomatoes at someone who appears naked in some magazine. I'm not talking about those magazines. I'm talking about the Vogues or the Vanity Fairs. And we can start throwing tomatoes at them, but we can't look at ourselves, or we project ourselves onto some behavior over this way, right? But we will not look at the things that we do over here. I'm not talking about over here. I'm talking about over this way. We won't touch that because I think because there's shame. I think because there's a deep history in us that we won't touch. And maybe if you go to therapy, maybe you will touch it. Maybe it's your upbringing. Maybe it's what you saw in your household. Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's not something different. Maybe it's something you learned. But these are the kinds of things, right, that in a relationship between two people, that was not some one-time thing, but was something familiar that may not have been rape, but may have been something that you're going, hang on a minute. Hmm. And we don't examine that in this country. We don't examine those gray areas because they make us uncomfortable, many of us. We don't examine that stuff at all. We put it in a little box, in a little, not a litter box for your pet, but a little box because we don't want to look at that. We really don't. It's a really good book that I do cite in my essay, apart from the book I've shown you already. There's a book by Justin Lehmiller, Lehmiller, called Tell Me What You Want. And that book is a must read as well. I did mention it in the essay. Must read. And it covers these gray areas. I mean, forget the politicians and all the people out here. And look at the culture, although I shouldn't say forget him. Look at Ted Kennedy. And I'm sorry, I blocked somebody on here for talking some real bullshit when I pointed out Ted Kennedy and Chappaquiddick because the person was basically defending Ted Kennedy. I'm like, fuck that, you know. But nobody deals with this, and the fact that he could run for president 11 years later. See what I'm talking about? That right there is another aspect of this culture, right? There's all these different areas. Whether you like Ted Kennedy or not, it's irrelevant here. But then there's this area also of what we do in our own bedrooms. And if we let anybody know, say on Substack, what we do in our own bedrooms, on our own floors, on our own kitchen sinks, you don't have to watch Glenn Close and Michael Douglas in Fatal Attraction from nearly 40 years ago, right? You've done this. It's your business. Again, that's away from the heinous, horrific situations that would be rape. Over here, you and I and whomever have done a lot of things that these are so deeply personal, right? What you like, what you don't like, what you fantasize about, what that might say about you. These are really deeply personal things. And there's many of us who, if we disclose that stuff, we'd be afraid to know what people think of us. In fact, the actor Donald Glover, actor and musician, talked about this. And I point that out in my essay. I'm not going to repeat that here, but I point that out in my essay. He's quoted in Justin Lee Miller's book. Um, those are deep things. So I'm going to read out your comments, but what I'm going to say here is, you know, why? If you're wondering, well, why, Omar, are you talking about this? Well, I'm talking about this because A, it needs to be talked about. B, I am so fed up, by the way, of people who reflexively just throw issues like this in the toilet without giving them, I think, a more fulsome and complex exploration. And also don't really take the time to talk about the culture, the rape culture, survivors, the way that we react to survivors, the way that we react to sex at large. Again, sex is very different from rape. These are not the same thing, folks. I mean, there are people who somehow think that these things are similar. And if you've seen any of those people, please give them an education. This society has tried in movies to blur the lines between those two things. I mean, if you go and watch a film called Straw Dogs, which is a really upsetting film, 1971, Sam Peckinpah, Dustin Hoffman starred in the movie, Susan George, and there was a scene in that film that ended up getting cut, at least from some of the editions of that film when it came out in 1971. Scenes that suggested or showed this particular woman in the film, played by Susan George, and again, trigger warning here, a scene that outrageously showed that this particular female character, quote unquote, enjoyed being raped. And again, this is a film directed by a white male filmmaker. So again, there was so much outrage about this, particularly in England, that I think the British Board of Classification either gave it an X rating or actually told Sam Peckinpah to recut the movie. And I think he refused. I think you can go look this up. And then I guess the Brits did not show it. The BBC, British Board of Film Classification, refused to show the film. And it's a very unsettling film. And it's a very traumatizing film. And it's a triggering film. And there's things like this that are out there in the culture. So um, we've got a lot of work to do. And again, there are some women who endorse these kinds of things. And then again, there's that gray area where there are these interactions. We've seen this whole thing with um, remember the Aziz Ansari and the situation that happened around him a few years ago. You know, are we going to communicate with each other? I mean, if you're having a casual sexual encounter, do you communicate? Or how much communication do you do? You don't have to answer that here, but I'm just raising these questions. How many of us really do check in with that person, whether they're casual or not, on a basis by, situational basis during an encounter of intimacy, of sex? And sex is a broad umbrella, right? Sex isn't only intercourse. Intercourse is a part of sex, but there's all other facets. How many of us check in through every phase of that? Or do we have a shorthand, or do we discuss these things before? Again, communication is really important. But would these folks who throw people away and who don't say anything about the deeper issues, the underlying issues, will they ever explore these kinds of things? No. That's why people on Substack do explore these things, because they're uncomfortable, they're troubling, they're painful, and they make us deeply unsettled, because maybe some of us have crossed these lines somewhere, right? Maybe some of us have gone to these places that we're ashamed of, or we think again about, or we speak publicly about these things, but we know that in the recesses of our brains, we too have committed transactional or things that are either heinous over here or lie somewhere more this way. And then there's people who, in some subcultures, play out these things or role play these things or reenact these things as part of their consenting adults do what they do thing. And I'm not even going to go any deeper than that, but you know what I'm saying? There are willing participants who reenact as part of their consenting adults do what they do in the bedroom. So these are the kinds of things that we don't like to talk about. And we don't have to talk about them publicly. But what I'm saying is that these are the areas, especially in American sexual life, sexual bedrooms, and the whole rape culture that encases all of this, that we're swimming or drowning in. Those things are what we don't want to touch. Maybe for good reasons, maybe for not good reasons. But all of this is floating in the bloodstream of a patriarchy, in the bloodstream of a rape culture. And it requires, I think, a lot of us to challenge each other and ourselves to look into our hearts and souls and do some soul searching, no matter who we are, right? And men, women, anyone. Men first and foremost, but women as well in a number of areas. What does that reveal about you? In other words, what does your private behavior, no matter where it is along that line, say about you? And are you willing to go deep with yourself? And are you willing in a consensual encounter to really show your innermost self? How distant are we from the alleged behavior of Graham Platner? Are we at the inappropriate text stage? Are we at the stage of saying things about women that Graham Platner apologized for? Are we at the stage of And again, I'm not even going to go into the Nazi tattoos. Are we at the stage of something with behavior wise? Have we got to us? Are we at the gray area of what men and women do? And I'm only saying, listen, as a straight man, I'm only talking about men and women. I mean, people who are members of the LGBTQIA community obviously are much better poised to talk about relationships between and amongst people in the LGBTQIA plus community, right? So I'm not someone who can speak to that. I can speak to men and women, right? And Prince once famously said, and I'll read your comments out in a moment, I promise. Prince once famously said, "Let a woman be a woman and a man be a man," in his song Get Off from the Diamond and Pearls album, right? And I've heard that before. Women, there was a movie called Thurgood or called Marshall, which starred the late, great, crikey, what's his name? Chadwick Boseman. And there's a line in that movie that has a white woman on a witness stand saying, men and it was around this issue in that movie, and the white woman says, men and women do what men and women do. What is that? I mean, I have an idea of what that is, but what is that to you, right? Um, Men and women do what men and women do. What is that? Right? It's kind of like consenting adults do what they do. Well, what is that? What is the do what they do? That is somewhere over here, right? Somewhere over here. I'm going to read out your comments. My brother, Gilda Johnson, writes, told me when he was in college, was coming for guys to purposely, and I'm just reading it as it's written here, and these are comments written a few minutes ago, so please excuse me for the delay in reading them out. My brother, writes Gilda Johnson, told me when he was in college, in was coming for guys to purposely get girls extremely drunk and rape them. We're in our 60s now, but when he told me, he said it made him sick when he witnessed this. Us in our 20s at the time were shocked. I look at our innocence back then, but didn't know this was going to be a common theme throughout my life as a female. Yeah, this is really horrible. Thank you for sharing this with us, Gilda. Gilda Johnson, thank you. Yeah, this is. See, the thing is, as Gilda says, women obviously being the survivors most predominantly, of course, there are also male survivors. Of course, we can't, I've never said otherwise, and it doesn't mean that they don't exist. I'm sure there's many male survivors who exist. Gilda is talking about something that women know all too well, right? That in a culture like this one, patriarchal culture, rape culture, as a woman, you are asked to bring mace with you, to bring sharp objects with you, to do all these things to alter your behavior and your appearance and all these things so that you don't get raped or abused in any way. You've got to go watch your drink. And you, as a woman, now have to look around. Well, not just now, but anytime. A woman or a girl has to look around and make sure that nobody's slipping something into her drink. The vast majority of men don't have to worry about that. Not to say that there haven't been some men who haven't worried about it, but women are the ones who have to watch their drinks. Oh, let me buy you a drink. Someone at a bar, man at a bar asks you to get a drink. You have to either say no or decide to go with him if you choose to accept that offer and make sure he hasn't put something in your beer or in your drink. I mean, you have to ask three of your girlfriends to make sure that You follow me or track me. You might have two or three of your girlfriends out as well, who could be close by to you, and you're going on a date with some man, and you don't know what's happened. You've taken a chance to go out with a man you've never met, and you have to now check in with your girlfriends every few minutes. Or, hey, if I don't answer you by this time, assume the worst. Come get me. If a woman decides to say no to a man in a parking lot, but then she ends up getting shot dead, as a black woman did in, I believe, South Carolina or North Carolina a few years ago, got shot twice, and excuse me for being graphic, shot twice in her head for saying no in a bar, and then she left the bar, and this guy she said no to followed her, and as she was getting into a car in the parking lot, in the car park, shot her dead. And you have to, as a woman in this society, this is what you're dealing with. And the man is never asked to change his behavior or to stop what he's doing. Rarely ever challenged to do it. You don't see public service announcements coming out here about saying, men, you have to do this. Men, you have to stop doing what you're doing to women. You have to start to examine what it really is to men. Where are those public service announcements on American television? But we do get these public service announcements about drinking and about driving and about this and da da da. We don't get any public service announcements about treat women with respect, treat women and girls as you would treat yourself. We don't get those in a patriarchal culture. We don't get that. In an anti-woman culture, we don't get those ads. And if we had a culture that embraced humanity, the humanity of everybody, we would get those kinds of ads, and maybe we'd have less of what we have. Thank you for the comment, Gilda. Edie Frankenfield has joined us. Hello to you. Connie, hello to you for joining us. Thank you. Len writes, I also am a survivor of SA, that's sexual assault, with my stepdad. Len continues, when I told my mother 30 years ago, she said I imagined it. Why would I want that? Question mark. Len, I am so very sorry to learn of your horrifying experience. Thank you for trusting us here. Thank you for trusting me with your information. Um, and it's just great to see you here. And I'm so very sorry that this happened to you. And look at the fallout from that. Len, and I'm sure many others of you watching this have had to deal with things like this. Your own mother, your own father, your own someone saying, oh no, this didn't happen to you. You're just pretending. You're just lying. How dare you? Don't you ever mention that in my house again. Oh, you're making it up. You're imagining it. You were dreaming. Yeah, that's the what I call, or what really survivors, and I'm someone who's not a survivor in any way, but what I would call, and what I've heard survivors call, a second rape. There was a film called The Invisible War, documentary, came out roughly 15, maybe 12 years ago, directed by Amy Ziering and Kirby Dick. And that documentary examined systemic rape in the military, in the US military. And one of the people who was in that documentary actually is Alison Gill, who you know on Substack. And she's been very open about her being a sexual assault survivor. And she's in that documentary. And one of the things that when you watch that documentary, is a deeply distressing documentary, but a necessary one, is that you learn that the people who were accused of rape were being promoted, surprise, surprise, promoted after being accused of rape. Promoted. While the women who were making the accusations of rape in the military were being thrown out of the military or demoted or forced, speaking of forced to work with the rapist, the alleged rapist, or the adjudicated rape, forced to work with them in the capacity. And as Len says, why would I want that? Who wants that? Who wants that? Nobody wants that. Nobody who has a heart and a soul, nobody who is without evil in their heart and soul would want anything like that. Karen Marcus has joined us. Hello, Karen. Nice to see you on this Sunday. Thank you for making some time. I'm going to be winding things down. I promise within the next 10 minutes or so, because of course we, have to get along with our day. But I did want to spend the last hour and a half to 2 hours really with this subject because it's something that we don't like to talk about, many of us. And why? Understandably, why should we want to? It's extremely painful, right? We have this area over here that is rape, that is sexual assault. And then we have these areas over here that are not. But then there's this conduct and behavior in here and over here that crosses some really troubling, disturbing lines, consent, what that means to someone, how that gets tested, and how that then starts to go toward here, and how these continuous or non continuous things get really tested for whatever reason, right? Those gray areas. And I can see why someone who may be a survivor may say, well, don't, Omar, don't have this lumped in with this. And preemptively, I say, I'm not lumping anything. What I'm saying is that there's this spectrum, right? And there are people who are over here. There are some of us who are over here, some of us over here, and someone you know who is over there in the area of rape and sexual assault. And then there's all kinds of complexities about people who have been in that situation, in rape situations or sexual assault situations or domestic violence situations, who cannot leave. And those are relationships. This is why I talked about Graham Platner earlier, right? People who are in these situations where they're married who cannot leave, or if they're not married, but living with the person who cannot leave, or who have children with the person who cannot leave. There's economic considerations. It is an extremely painful and difficult situation for those individuals that we cannot ever overlook. And so all the performativeness, all the performative BS that I see in a lot of places, including on here at times, including in the corporate news media and elsewhere, where people are just doing this and not really getting deeper into the meat and potatoes of things. And they're not really thinking about and doing the things that we need to be doing to be better human beings overall. We need to be doing those things. All of us do. And whether you're a survivor, whether you're not a survivor, obviously there's a lot of things you're going through. To the people who are not survivors, who've had behaviors that go on this scale that comes over here, and what consent really means. And that word being an act that isn't just at the beginning of an encounter, but really goes through all of that encounter. And then there's things like self-care and aftercare and all these things, again, that are, you know, part of this realm here, right? And then there's, as I said, over this realm, off camera, the really evil stuff. And then there's all these other things in between. So again, that's the conversation, that's the discussion, that's the food for thought. That those are things we need to do to challenge ourselves. And the mores of people who voted for Graham Platner, right? There are more women, by the way, that voted for Graham Platner than they did for anyone else in Maine, and that saw him as a figure that was vulnerable. There are women attracted, as I said earlier, attracted to a Graham Platner, attracted to men who are rough. And again, I don't know about Graham Platner because he was not charged with anything. Okay? Not charged. Accused, but not charged. Not adjudicated in the court of law. Very important to keep saying that. That there are people who are attracted to violent men. And again, that is due to all kinds of factors, male figures in their lives, being in situations where they have been assaulted sexually or have been raped. I'm not saying that every survivor is like that. I'm just saying that there is a pattern that happens for some people. I think of Halle Berry. Forgive me for bringing up her name, but Halle Berry, I think, talks fairly openly about this, marrying men who um, have turned out to be quite abusive, and she's gone through a lot in her life, and I think her mother has experienced some of this. And so, if you marry what you see, right, sometimes oftentimes you do, right? And if in your household you had a model of a mother and a father, presumably, or maybe even if you're in a household that did not have one or both of those figures around, you are around what you see. And as they say, monkey see, monkey do. And you replicate those behaviors based on your experiences with those behaviors and what you were brought up in and around, and the culture that you're in, and the country that you're in, and the parental figures that you have, the friends that you grew up with. And so we cannot sit here and act as if that is not something that is a thing that is serious. That there are men and women who are attracted to figures who I might say, forgive me for sounding that I'm on my moral high horse, who I might say are wholly objectionable. But there are people who are attracted to that. And maybe there are people who are attracted to that as a desire or a fantasy, who may not have been in horrific situations, as some of the survivors here have experienced, but who have a fantasy about those kinds of things. I go back again to what consenting adults do in the bedroom, whatever that is. So we are afraid as a culture to confront those things. I there's a song that I talk about that I love actually. I'm a pretty big fan of Billy Joel, and I do hope that he's able to get well. He's had a lot of health. He had a big health challenge this year, and I do hope that he's able to get well. And whether he performs again, to me, I would love to see him, but that's hardly the priority. Is I hope that Billy Joel gets well and that he continues his fight and he gets better soon. Um, but there's a song that Billy Joel did off his album The Stranger, which is his most successful album. The Stranger came out, I think, in 1976 or 77, something like that. And there's a song on there called The Stranger, the title track. And that song is a really good song to listen to, because I think Billy Joel gets that absolutely right. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have musical platforms, musical streaming platforms, you have YouTube. Please go and type in The Stranger and listen to that song, listen to the lyrics of that song. He is on the money, absolutely on the money. And in that one song from 50 or almost 50 years ago now, Billy Joel addresses more directly that issue that I've talked about here with you for the last 2 hours than many people have. And again, it's a song, but that song, I think, really hits what I've been talking about with these areas of behavior. You know, um, Because then we have to look at ourselves and ask, how monstrous are we? Right? How monstrous are we? Because if we can be monstrous, asking a survivor, well, why didn't you come forward earlier? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Like, we perform this patriarchy test on the survivor, usually a woman, We as men and women, as people, many of us, in chats, in real life, and all, we perform these patriarchy tests, sometimes without even knowing it. We become the patriarchy en masse. Oh, why didn't you come forward? We're becoming patriarchal inquisitors of survivors. Oh, why didn't you come forward then? Oh, I'm suspicious of the timing. Oh, why didn't you say it then? Why now? Why do we do that as human beings? Why do you think we, some of us, maybe you, maybe, you know, why do you think you do that? I'm not saying that you can't have some skepticism about someone or something, because you should have an open mind and actually do some critical thinking about things. But it's one thing to think critically, and I'm a champion of critical thinking. And there's quite another thing. It's quite another thing to go and say, well, why didn't you come forward earlier? Huh? None of your business why someone didn't come forward earlier. What time do you want me? What time do you want me to come forward? What time do you want someone who is a survivor to come forward? 10 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday, July the 12th, 2026. What time do you want them to come forward? It's just, how monstrous are we? And you got people on chats, social media platforms, who sit there and say, yeah, she should have this happen to her, or yeah, she should have that happen to her, or yeah, I'd like to do this to her, or yeah, I'd like to do that. Now, again, there is the what consenting adults do in their bedrooms. Imagine if you opened up that box. Imagine if you opened up that box in your life of this area over here. Because again, that, in my view, is very, very different from this area over here, where we're talking about rape and sexual assault. Imagine if you had to open up that box of all the things that you've done in your bedroom or your living room or your kitchen or on a retreat or on a floor or on a kitchen sink or on a table. Or imagine if you had to open that up and share it with the world and have someone out there going, well, look at what you do. Gosh, you're pathetic. You're awful. That's what you do? Really? That's how you do that? What time do you want to come forward? Wow. Really? Gosh, that sounds a lot like something that would be over here. Imagine if you had what you do in your bedroom or floor, whatever, exposed to the world. And you had people in the media scrutinizing what you do. How would you feel about that? Again, this is very different from rape in this area. What if you had that happen to you? How would you feel about that? And survivors over here, the survivors have this stuff exposed to the world. And so many of us are so quick to throw judgments out there about, well, why didn't you come forward? Why now? Why didn't you come forward 30, 40, 50 years ago? 60 years ago? Why are you saying this now? So I want you to sit with that for a moment as I wind things down and read these comments out. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for trusting me. And again, please subscribe to my Substack here. And it's been 2 hours now, isn't it? Almost exactly. Now it is exactly 2 hours. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your Sunday. Your valuable time is precious, and I recognize that. I hope I haven't wasted any of yours. You could be doing something far more interesting. than watching yours truly. It's 1 p.m. on the East Coast, 10 a.m. here in San Francisco, California. I do thank you for your abiding support and for your subscriptions as well. I will always tell you the truth. I will always, always be very upfront with you. And sometimes there'll be people who watch these Substacks I do who don't like what I say, but I don't care. I am someone, even though I've just asked you for your subscriptions, I was not afraid to lose subscribers. And I believe in integrity. I believe in being honest and forthright. And I do believe in challenging you as well as challenging myself. And again, that's not to sound self-righteous or better than anyone else, because I am not going in that direction at all. I'm just saying that there's a lot of bullshit out here. Some of it's on this platform. Some of it's in our lives where we see a lot of bullshit. And I don't have time for it. And I don't have time for people who bullshit at all. And I'm very ruthlessly clinical about that and very conclusive about it. And sometimes people don't like that. Maybe that's a character flaw of mine, one of many. But listen, I believe in really cutting to the heart of the issue. And I really believe in sincerity and being true to who I am. And if that means losing a few subscribers, so be it. If it means I have to block people and lose paid subscriptions, so be it. I'll do it. Because again, the end of the day, connection and truth and principle and integrity and community are more important than saying things that people want to hear to make them comfortable. That's just the way I roll. There's lots of people who will say things to make you comfortable because they don't want to lose you as a subscriber. I'm not one of them people. So I have to just get real with you folks, because that's just the only way I know how. But I do thank you for your commitment and for your time. The rest of this is going to be devoted to me reading out your comments. It's so important to interact with the audience. Please check your voting registration. Please do it twice a month. Make sure that you develop a plan right now in advance of the midterms for voting, for getting people out to vote. Talk to people that you love. Ask them about what their voting plan is going to be. Do that now in July. Don't wait till October. November is absolutely clinical and crucial for us in this country. Mental health, writes Chrissy, and these comments now from a few hours, I almost said a few hours ago, a few minutes ago. So please, my apologies to you for the belatedness of my reading these out. Chrissy writes, mental health is healthcare. Don't be afraid to seek out therapy. Thank you, Chrissy. That's a very important message. Coffee is Life writes, Len, you are so strong. I am so sorry. Len getting the support for her disclosures today. Again, this community here is here to be real, to be honest, to be trusting. Trust is a very important variable. I want to reiterate that here. It's always necessary for me to say this because it doesn't get said often enough on a lot of these Substacks that I look at with people. Trust is important. Thank you for trusting me. I do not take your trust lightly. I take it very seriously. And I say that because it is sincere. And you know, and you will know, and you'll come to know if you watch here long enough, and also if you become a paid subscriber as well. But if you watch here long enough, whether you're a subscriber paid or free or not at all, you will realize, and through deeds and actions, not only words, because actions and deeds are what count, you will see that you're watching somebody here who is a man of his word and is very, very sincere and serious about all of these issues and more, and about trust, because trust is everything. If you don't have trust, you got nothing in this world. Trust is very important, and you have to work to earn people's trust. And I will continue to work to earn yours. So thank you for those of you who are joining here, who joined live or who joined later. Thank you very much indeed. Darnell Martin is here with us. Darnell, thank you so very much. The legendary Darnell Martin, she being the filmmaker extraordinaire. Darnell, thank you for your continued support, and thank you for trusting me, and thank you for being here. It's really great pleasure to see you, and thank you for your abiding support. Please go and follow Darnell Martin, subscribe to her. here on Substack. And please go and Google her. If you don't know who Darnell Martin is, please, for heaven's sakes, what are you waiting for? Follow her, subscribe to her, Google her, and go and find out who Darnell Martin is. Fantastic filmmaker. And it's thank you to you, Darnell, for being here. Really appreciate you. Chrissy writes, but how does one know if they are both consenting? Yeah, Chrissy, that's an excellent point. And I don't know that I don't think I really addressed that during the course of these last 2 hours. This book is a really, really good book that discusses consent. And I would go on at length about trying to answer your question, Chrissy. I think that communication is extremely important. That's one answer that may not satisfy you, Chrissy, or anyone else watching this, but communication has to be the bedrock of things between consenting adults, because there's all kinds of communication and there's all kinds of things that are not communicated. They are assumed. Men, maybe many men, assuming that because they pay for a date, that they expect something sexual to come out of it. There's many men that still in 2026, dear viewer, and you, Chrissy, as well as a dear viewer, think that that is expected. 2026, there's millions of men who think this. Well, I paid $400 for this date. I expect a woman to repay me. Could you communicate? Could you talk about these issues instead of thinking that up here? Talk about these things, right? Get into those conversations. People need to do those kinds of things. And you have women thinking, well, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't accept this date. And I'm going to offer to split the bill because, therefore, if I offer to split the bill, this man that I'm with will not expect anything sexual from me. And that's a calculus that I believe many women make. And I can be corrected if I'm wrong on that from the women watching this. There's things communicated and things not communicated. And then there's this larger society of toxic masculinity and patriarchy that frankly governs how many millions of us operate and how we operate in an ambit of that kind of society. So a woman literally will find that she has to defend herself and preemptively and proactively put these measures in place. If I go on this date with this man, I'm going to make sure I do this, this, and this. It's true. This happens every hour of the day. And there are women in this chat who know I'm telling the truth. So that's the key question, Chrissy. How does one know if both people are consenting? And again, I think the book from the sister here, Christine Ember, she tackles that question. And I had thought about that question even before ever reading this book. I've felt like this from since I was in my late teens. I had these ideas and these thoughts and feelings. I've not just come to this at my age now. And I'm not, again, I'm just being very frank with you. I've had these views about these subjects for decades. And consent is so important, but consent isn't just about, I'm saying this to everybody, as I'm sure you know, isn't just about what you talk about beforehand when it comes to sex, to intimacy, all these things. Consent is a continuum. It's a continuum. It's checking in with the person you're having sex with. It's checking in and communicating. And some people check in, some people don't. Some people have a shorthand, some people don't. Some people have a plan, some people don't. Some people just do something spontaneous and that's the way they roll, and some people don't, right? I'm not editorializing on any of those things, but I do go back to the very important question that Chrissy asks. How do we know? Do both people know that they're consenting? And even more, to add to Chris's question, what are they consenting to? Don't mean to get too close to the camera. I want to scare you away. What are they consenting to? Some people don't like to talk about these things before sex because maybe they find it a turnoff. Some people don't want to talk about these things during sex because maybe that spoils the mood. Some people don't want to talk about these things because, you know what? Go with the flow. Go with the flow. And then I'll tell you whether that feels right or not, or whether you've got to stop or not. Are there safe words? Are they not? Again, let me stress this. This is different from over here, but these areas can blur sometimes. Sometimes you can have situations, I've talked about this here before, where two people are having sex and it's been consented to. And then a day or two later, one of those people, maybe the woman, and maybe more often the woman, says, you know what? Yeah, we had sex, but that wasn't very good, actually. In fact, it really hurt, physically hurt. And you know what? I feel awful. In fact, I feel violated. Then how do people tackle that situation? How do people do that? Does the man ever afterwards, if he ever sees that woman again, or even if he knows that woman well, does he ever check in with her afterwards? I mean, you're talking about the aftercare, but even after the aftercare, if there's any aftercare at all, is there for some people? Maybe not. But if there is any aftercare, even after that, days later, a day later, do you ever go back and check in with that woman? Do you? Chrissy's question, thank you, Chrissy, for asking it. Chrissy, for asking it, is very important. Edie Frankenfeld, if anyone else had driven a car off a bridge and left a woman to drown, they'd have gone to jail. Edie Frankenfield, thank you for that. Oh my God, I'm so happy you said that, Edie. I'm not being theatrical here. I am just so happy that you said that. I had a conversation with someone the other day, a woman, and I was talking to her about this. Um, and I told her um, about blocking someone on this platform. A friend of mine I was talking to about this, and I said to her, yeah, this I had to block this idiot, and it was a woman I blocked, by the way. And I was telling this friend of mine, I said to her, I had to block this woman. I think is a bot on here for supporting Ted Kennedy around Chappaquiddick and Mary Jo Kopechne, and of course my female friend that I spoke to, she was just outraged about the fact that someone would even be saying, oh, it was an accident and Ted Kennedy was just trying to help. Fuck that. So, yeah, I feel really strongly about that. And Edie, thank you. If anyone else, and that because the friend of mine I spoke to, that's exactly what she said. She said, I mean, almost the exact words. If his name was not Kennedy, he would be behind bars. Never mind, let alone getting to run for president of the United States 11 years afterwards. So, Edie, thank you for further reinforcing that truth. Absolutely would have been in prison, would have been in jail by now. And then that says something about this culture that we then vote for someone like a Ted Kennedy or we vote for a Donald Trump. Again, this is not about parties because this goes way beyond Democrats versus Republicans and left versus right. All these artificial bullshit distinctions that keep us from really getting at the issues of a system that brings about a Graham Platner or brings about a Donald Trump or brings about a Pete Hegseth or a Bill Cosby or a Harvey Weinstein or a Diddy or a freaking R. Kelly or a Catholic priest, usually a white male. And all these straight white men out here who think that somehow raping children is some badge of honor. Or a Doug Warren, a pastor, who says that women shouldn't vote. All these women out here who support stripping the 19th Amendment out of the Constitution. All these women in the world who say, well, yeah, she went up to his hotel room at 3 a.m. What was she expecting? Uh, I think that makes you monstrous as much as it does the man who does these things. Different in a different way, but still, your attitude speaks volumes. Those of you, and you know who you are, who out there. And so, Edie Frankenfield, thank you very much indeed for what you had to say there. This is a hard but necessary conversation, writes Coffee is Life. Rape is about rage and overpowering someone. Coffee is Life, yes, it's about power, about violence, it's about power. It's about violence, overpowering someone. Yes, absolutely. Rage, power, overpowering someone. It's violence, it's control, it's power, it's rage. Coffee is life. Thank you for making that point. Christopher Grassi, hello. Sex is a matter of communication, I think, writes Coffee is life. I agree with that. Coffee is life. A manner of communication. It is. Sex is about, in my view, expressing who you are, expressing your whole totality, your whole expression of who you are. Dance is a similar kind of thing, right? When you're dancing, you are doing the very same thing, except you're not inside somebody, right? Or you're not having sexual, because again, um, sex is not only about intercourse, right? It's about engagement in other ways where there is not penis vagina interaction, right? There's penetration, right? There's other different facets and forms of what sex is, right? That aren't intercourse in the traditional penis vagina way, right? Um, but I agree, coffee is life. It is a matter and a manner of communication. I agree with that 100%. And thank you for putting your opinion forward. Reenactments. Yeah. Um, there are people who reenact things. I touched on that earlier, Coffee is Life, as you just point out, reenactments. That is very much a thing that happens. Those things can be deeply personal. There are people who engage in fantasy play and role play and all that. Um, Again, those fit in the box for each and every one of us, whether we do those kinds of things or not. I'm not here to poll you or ask you. None of my fucking business. But I'm just here to be honest and frank about the things that we do, right? We do these things, right? You know, I mean, I remember the whole thing with Christy Nome and her husband and how all that stuff came out. Some people laughed at it, some people demonized it, other people had a lot of compassion and empathy for the husband. But again, those are things that he does or did or continues to do in the comfort of his own home. It may have been on video, it may have been leaked on audio, whatever. But people do all kinds of things. People videotape, people do all kinds of things, right? With their lives in the bedroom or in the living room or wherever they do what they do, hotel rooms, right? But that's in a box for them. And like I said earlier, how would anybody like your box, and forgive me for using that term, your box to be opened and blah, splayed out everywhere for people to point at and say, ha ha ha, you're such a pathetic person. That's what you like to do. Or you're not doing it right. Or, oh my God, really? You do that? Some people might actually like that. But this is the thing that we don't touch. Thank you, Coffee is Life. What's scary, writes Coffee is Life, is that a lunatic can hack your computer and post things you're seeking, pretending to be you. This actually happened. Wow, Coffee is Life. If this actually happened to you, I'm sorry. We're in a dangerous place, aren't we, with AI? Facebook, Meta recently had to reverse what it was going to do about having an app that allowed people to actually get your photographs and do AI with them and post them. without any repercussion and without your opinion, without your permission. They had to roll back because there was so much outrage. That's where we're heading, folks. As Al Pacino once said, I think in, was it The Insider? Great film with Russell Crowe. Um, your life is not your own. Frightening. Al Pacino was had the finger on the pulse of a lot of that, right? Um, not just Al Pacino, but just comments in movies and as a film buff. And by the way, I did a review of the film The Invite, which also is a film that I think is quite interesting, that kind of deals with the area over here, not the area over here that's rape, but the area over here. I'm not giving anything away. I wrote a review about this that probably does mention a few things about the movie. The Invite with Penelope Cruz, Edward Norton, Seth Rogen, and Olivia Wilde, who also directed the film, which was written, by the way, by Quincy Jones's daughter, Rashida Jones, and Will McCormack, who I think may be her husband. They wrote the script. And it deals with The Invite is a film which is out now in theaters that deals with this area over here. Very interesting film. And I wrote a review of it a few days ago. It's on my Substack. But yeah, these things happen. Impersonation happens. Coffee is life. Catfishing happens. I don't know if it's still a thing around Coffee is Life, but there was a signal a woman could give a bartender if she needed help. I think that probably still does happen in some ways, but I know that what you're speaking of, Coffee is Life, there would be women who would coordinate with bartenders or the ownership of a place and have some kind of signal or something if something was going wrong at a bar or thereabouts. There'd be some kind of intervention. I would dare say that probably it may not go on as much as it did back in maybe the 60s or the 1970s or even into the 80s, but I bet you there's still instances of that, particularly of people who are usual regulars to a bar. And there's all these stigmas against women who go to bars by themselves because, of course, popularized popularized in movies. There's this belief amongst some men and some women that if a woman is going to a bar by herself, that means she's looking for sex. Maybe she's. What if she's just going to the bar just to enjoy herself and have a drink? Has anybody start to think about that? But there are these assumptions that many of us make, or that there's something wrong with her for going by herself to a bar. Is there something wrong with a man when he goes by himself to a bar? Do we make assumptions about him? And he might be going to a bar for sex. But do we make these same intrinsic assumptions about a man by himself in a sexist society that we do a woman? I think not, from my very definite rhetorical question. Hi, Omar, writes Connie. Hello, Connie. Thanks for being here. Nice to see you. Absolutely, Omar, writes Angie Decadence. Lots of us cannot resonate with every single potentially dangerous scenario that you uh, just listed. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, writes Len. Edelweiss Farm has joined us. Angie Decadence. I'm sorry, let me reread what Angie wrote. Absolutely, Omar. Lots of us can. Let me correct that because Angie corrected it herself. Absolutely, Omar. 100%. Lots of us cannot. Excuse me. Absolutely, Omar. 100%. Lots of us can resonate with every single potentially dangerous scenario you just listed. And that was when I was talking about um, pepper spray, mace, men who do this, men who do that, the drink scenario, dropping something in a woman's drink, which is extremely regular that happens in this country, and the mace and calling on girlfriends and saying, hey, look, if I don't make a phone call to you when I leave to go to the bathroom, if I don't make a phone call to you at 9:30 at night, I might leave the table with the man I'm with on a date. And if I don't leave that table to call you and say, hey, look, everything's going okay, I'm all right, I'll check in with you later, then you need to come here for me. That is, listen, folks, that is what, to the men watching this, who know what they're about and what they've done, good and bad, that is what women do, mate. That moment that they're leaving the table to go to the restroom might well be the moment they're going to the restroom or somewhere to check in with their girlfriends or their kids, if they have children, or some other person, trusted friend, and saying, you know what, yeah, everything's fine, I'm all right, no worries, everything's okay. That might be what they're doing. I want, yeah, if you're a man watching this, particularly if you're a straight man watching this, to think about that. I want you to think about that. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, says Len. And again, Sherelle's joined us. Sherelle, hello to you. Nice to see you. My Substack is having issues today. Coffee is right. Life writes. I'm sorry to hear it. Substack is always very screwy, and it does promote a lot of havoc. Vote, counts of how many people have seen your articles or followers that you got, subscribers you got. I know it's just very strange. We need to patronize black-owned platforms. You've got Roland Martin Unfiltered, his app, the Black Star Network app. You've got Chris Boozy on Spoutable. You've got Black and Latino owners of the platform Spill, a safe haven for Black people and LGBTQIA people. These are safe spaces that you need to be patronizing, right? And it's safer. It's not toxic like X. It's not like Instagram or like Facebook or like Threads. And I know people love those platforms. Heck, Instagram. I've used Instagram, but there's other platforms that we need to be patronizing. Also, Fanbase by Isaac Hayes III. That's right, the son of the legendary one and only late great Isaac Hayes. His platform, black owned, Fanbase. You know, and that is something we need to support. So support black owned platforms, folks. Very important. Karen C. Book Collector has joined us. Hello. Ivelis Reyes has joined us again. I love Billy Joel, writes Len. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I got a number of his. I've got pretty much every record of Billy Joel, um, including a number of his vinyl records. The Stranger is the greatest album he's ever done. I don't think he'll ever do anything as good as The Stranger ever again. And again, for those of you who aren't familiar with Billy Joel, I'm a big fan of his. And also, New York State of Mind is one of my biggest favorites. Obviously, when the Knicks win, even when they don't win, they play that song at Madison Square Garden at the end of every game. Uh, and Man, what a time it was at Madison Square Garden to be there for that game four, 29-point comeback. Oh, I'll never forget that. As you know, I've written about that and other things. But yeah, Billy Joel, who's going through going through some very challenging times at the moment. I do wish him well and keep on fighting, Billy. And that song, The Stranger, again, if you've not ever heard it, you can find it, you can stream it, you can go on YouTube, type in The Stranger, Billy Joel. Uh, Joel is his last name, Billy Joel, The Stranger. That song, go listen to the lyrics of that song. That hits the nail on the head. Amy Charmanik has joined us. Amy, hello again. Thank you for being back here, as you were back in the early hours of this morning and last night after the World Cup post match that I did. I'll be doing a World Cup post match, of course, on Wednesday evening or afternoon. I think it's evening, early evening. I think it's going to be after that England match against Argentina is over, no matter what happens in it. And of course, next Sunday I'll be doing a World Cup final post match as well, no matter which two teams are in the World Cup final. Hopefully, England will be one of them. We'll see. And hopefully, England will win it. But listen, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We have a small matter of trying to defeat Argentina on Wednesday. Good luck, England. And of course, France versus Spain on Tuesday. Coffee is Life writes the following. I was exposed to DV at a very young age. My neighbors across the street frequently scared me when I heard screaming on their front lawn. I have sheltered several friends and acquaintances who were in domestic violence, DV, domestic violence situations. I never judged anyone who chose to return. It didn't feel right to judge something I could not understand. Thank you for your empathy, Coffee is Life, and for your uh, gestures and practices in providing comfort for people who have been in those situations. Um, God, forgive me for this reference. Bob Dylan's song, which has no relation to this, but only because the title is similar. Remember that song where he sings, "Come in, come here." She said, "I'll give you shelter from the storm." And I mentioned Bob Dylan as a Bob Dylan fan. having seen him in concert a few years ago, and of course he's still around. And I'm not saying that he's the most savory person on earth, but is still a tremendous songwriter. And so, "Shelter from the Storm," which has a different context from what obviously Coffee is Life is talking about. I want to just thank you, Coffee is Life, for trusting us in this community with your information and trusting me as well with it. And thank you for that. It's horrible, isn't it? What would any of us do in a situation like the one Coffee is Life is talking about, where you're talking about being exposed to domestic violence? Do you look the other way and pretend you didn't hear the sound of someone being thrown against a wall? Or do you actually take a chance and intervene in something that could be very dangerous? Women try and get temporary restraining orders. And in a society like this, temporary restraining orders don't do shit for most women. In fact, not only do they don't do shit for most women, they actually put women in even graver danger because that man disregards those temporary restraining orders and ends up killing, in many instances, those women. So when Coffee is Life says that they are not judging, and I don't know if Coffee is Life is male, female, or trans or anything else. That's not my business. But I'm just saying, when Coffee is Life is mentioning this, they are mentioning this because judgment is something that we really have to try to restrain ourselves from, and I'm trying to at times. I fail spectacularly often with judgmental and being judgmental on things. But that line that Coffee is Life writes at the end there, it didn't feel right to judge something I could not understand. It's completely the thing, right? Why should we be judged? Why should we, any of us, be judging these things that may not be unique to our personal experience, but may be unique to someone else's, or very commonplace to many people's personal experiences? As I said earlier, it's not easy to leave these situations. I told you there are economic considerations, there's livelihood considerations, there's children involved. And if you're someone who has, like some of the people in this chat, have been survivors or are survivors and have experienced rape or domestic violence or sexual assault, and you are in a and that's happened at the hands of the man that you're married to, that's not, we can't sit here and tell him go and leave. It's not easy to do that. It's not. And that's the complexity that people aren't talking about. We just say, go leave, like it's easy in 2026 to leave, in any year to leave. It's not easy. But we have this ready made answer for everything in this country, the quick fix. Oh, you want to lose weight? Just put this band around your waist. You'll lose 35 pounds in one day. That's the kind of America that we live in. The mythology of America. The quick fix. Just toss this out. You'll be fine. Your life will be fine. Just go get this surgery. You'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel better about your breasts if you have artificial breasts. That will make you feel better about you. And maybe it might if you're a woman, right? Maybe it might, but maybe it might not. And maybe there's health consequences to that. Quick fix America. Hello, Vicky. I just got here, writes Vicky. Hi, Omar, says Vicky. I just got here. Oh, Vicky, look, you're here. That's all that counts. Um, yes, I'm someone who, of course, is um, when it comes to in person with people who are late, I just don't have any tolerance for that. As I think I've written and documented that on one occasion at least, documented that in general, I should say, on one occasion in writing an essay. That's the one occasion I'm talking about. But you're here, and you can always watch this later. I'm not that strict with people. If you come in late on Substack, I mean, come on, you're living your life. Um, Again, I'm thankful that you even come in here at all, Vicky and everyone else. like, I'm thankful you're even here at all. I'm thankful that you're alive, actually, most importantly, let alone you want to come here and watch me for 2.5 hours. That's what it is now. My gosh, battery's still going. But I said I was going to wrap this up about 45 minutes ago. But again, I fail every time at this and miserably. As a survivor, Vicky writes, and thank you, Vicky, for trusting us with this information that I'm about to read out. As a survivor, writes Vicky, it took me years to come forward and try to deal with all of what happened to me. At 78 years old, I am still in therapy. Thank you, Vicky. I'm so very, very sorry that this happened to you. This is horrible. I can't imagine the pain, the trauma, the deep hurt that you have experienced and continue to experience. And good for you for seeking therapy with this. It's a brave thing to do. Um, some people aren't at that place to go to even confronting that, and it's deeply painful and personal. Everybody is different about this, and Vicky, thank you for your courage and for being you, and for seeking out therapy around all of this. We live in a culture that does not acknowledge therapy. I mean, I think it's a little bit better now about the idea that men, women, that anyone should feel empowered to seek therapy, to seek counseling, to seek that kind of help, and self-care and mental health conversations. But still, there's still too many people in this country who view going to seek help or going to get therapy or going to get counseling as a so-called weakness. That if you're a man in particular, somehow you're weak and deficient if you somehow go and seek help. Couldn't be farther from the truth, couldn't be more opposite. You're actually strong, and you are courageous, and you are brave, and you are empowering yourself if you seek help. In fact, you are weak if you're a man, if you just sit there and go, well, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm fine. That's a weakness. That's a failure, I think, to really open up the lens for you. But this culture is like that. You're operating in a culture that says, oh no, you're a man. You can just keep doing what you want, man. And the movies replicate that. The TV series replicate that, right? The magazine articles replicate that. The products and the advertising on Madison Avenue replicates that. And so the man doesn't have to think that there's a problem with him. It's you women out here. You women. The male gaze is the predominant gaze. The male gaze, Gaze, not the male gaze, Gays. Right? Just want to make that clear. Um, Vicky, thank you. Thank you very much for courageously putting forth your very personal experiences and traumas. Takes a lot of guts to do that. To all the survivors in here, takes a lot of guts. And you face people who will judge you and will be awful to you, and then you'll face people who in this community are very empathetic and compassionate and who really care and who offer and want to offer you support and comfort and encouragement. And that is the multifaceted or two-sidedness of human beings, the multidimensional things about human beings, right? There are some of us who say awful things, and there are others of us who offer comfort and support. It's horrible, writes Len. It is so hard, Vicky writes, and remembering is not in any chronological order. It comes in spurts. It took me 30 years to say anything, Vicky writes, about her own horrific situation. So again, when people in this world say, why didn't you come out earlier? Why didn't you come out 30 years ago? Why didn't you come out 50 years ago? Oh, how dare anyone sit here and say, well, why didn't you come out earlier? Oh, the timing's suspicious. What? Maybe you think it is, that maybe it's not. right? But maybe you believe a survivor, maybe you don't, right? And I'm with Don Lemon on the following. When people say believe all women, come on, believe all men. Anyone who says believe all men or believe all women, I'm sorry. And that may ruffle some feathers in here, but I just don't buy that, right? You can choose what you want to believe in this world. All I ask is that you have compassion for the people who are going through the things they're going through. Whether you believe them or not, have some empathy. That to me is more important. Edie Frankenfield writes, thank you, thank you. Edie, thank you for being here. Len writes, I love your honesty. Thank you, Len. And she continues, that's why I'm a subscriber. Thank you, Len. And Vicky concurs with that. Me too, Len. Thank you so much, Len and Vicky. Um, this is the only way I know how to be. And like I've said to people, I'm not here to make friends. Yes, I'm someone that it's lovely to interact with you, and I do respect you. And as I said on a recent episode of the Politicrat podcast, I am not going to be here to say what you want me to tell you, right? I'm going to tell you the facts, the truth, and the way I feel about things. And I would actually be disrespecting you if I told you all the nice, cushy, comfy things. And if I never did criticize you, perhaps, or call you out, or block you, or say, fuck it, I'm not going to interact with you, I would actually be disrespecting you if I didn't have a level of that kind of straight no chaser as somebody I think Angie's referring to in the comments. And you can take that or leave it, just like I can take or leave who you are as a person. It's a mutual thing, right? And I don't say things. I'm not saying things to be popular. I'm saying things because these are my convictions, these are my feelings, these are my thoughts, and I think I'd be wasting your time if I bullshitted you. I'd be wasting my time. It's now nearly 3 hours in here. I'd be wasting your time and mine. And again, I don't like to waste time with people. And there are people who are bullshit artists in the world. You know some of them, I know some of them, right? And so I don't have time for people like that. I just don't. And I just really am, as I get older and as you get older, you realize that it's like, fuck this. And in fact, I felt like this for a long time anyway, even before I've got older. Uh, I don't have time for bullshit. Sorry, I just don't. And you can judge that and call it what you want, some people, or you can go gossip about it all you want. I don't care. I just care about really being direct with you and making a connection with you around the things that you care about and hopefully edifying you, if I may be so bold to say, um, around these issues and also bringing positivity and hope and joy because it's not all just the seriousness here on this episode of Sundays with Omar or on the Politicrat. You will get uplifting things, how to's, solutions. I am solutions oriented as well. I think if you read this essay that I wrote and published today called Graham Platner and Us, you will see that there are solutions oriented things. I've provided some of that here. So it's not just about da 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 da. Solutions are are the issue that we need to tackle. We need to have solutions put out there, I should say. That's what we need to put out there. People have to have some kind of basis for hope and ability to want to do better and aspire to better and to be inspired. And I hope that you find that I may do that from time to time. So thank you. And thank you, Len. Thank you, Vicky. Omar says, Vicky, excuse me, this is Angie Decadence. We appreciate your straight no tracer nuance on all things. Thank you very much indeed, Angie Decadence. I appreciate you. I respect you. And thank you for your trust. Because as I said before, trust is extremely important. And I think that if you don't have trust, you've got nothing in this world. We're only here for a few minutes, basically, in the grand scheme of life. And so we really have to be amongst people who are going to either going to learn from them, or they're going to help elevate us, or at least we're going to learn something and interact with them positively. That stuff is really important to me. There are people who you will meet, or who who are just going to just kind of try to drag you down. You've experienced this. And I know people who've experienced this. I've experienced this. And then you have to make a call. Are you going to spend time with those people or not? And as I wrote in a story around this a few weeks ago here on Substack, you have the right to determine your own self worth. You have the right to determine your own value, your own self value. Hopefully, you deem it to be priceless. But many of us have a lot of self doubt for obvious reasons. Our upbringing, what we've been told, abuse, all kinds of things, right? But you, watching this right now, whether live or later on, have the power to determine your own self worth and your value, and who you want to spend time with in your life and who you don't. That's up to you to decide that. You and you alone. You have to decide that you are worthy of something, and that your worthiness means that only some people can get to spend time with you. Yeah, don't be afraid to look at it like that. Don't be afraid to affirm who you are, to brag about yourself, to uplift yourself when people try to push you down or drag you down to them. Because there are people in this world who do that, and you know who they are. You've had experiences with these people in your life. You have to separate the wheat from the chaff and the bullshit. There are people out there who are just bullshit, who fuck around. They're just all over the place. And again, that's up to them, but that's not you. And motherfuckers like that will drag your ass down. And you need to decide whether you want to continue to be dragged down in some mediocre ass bullshit, or if you want to elevate yourself to where you are and be around people who are in that like-minded arena. Your self-worth is everything. It really is. Not being performative, I am being declarative. Your self-worth is everything. And you have to decide that you are priceless in this world, despite what people may have told you in your life. People who you love, who may have told you that you are less than. You're not less than. So I just want to reiterate that. Mental health is health. Trauma therapy is a specialized field, writes Vicky. Indeed. Trust is so vital. Stories are only told in safe spaces. Thank you, Vicky, for trusting in this space, because it's a safe space here. So thank you for your trust, Vicky. Trust is something that is a huge commodity, folks. And I will never betray yours. Never betray your trust, ever violate your trust. That is extremely serious to me. And thank you for responding in kind. Thank you very much indeed. Trust is definitely earned, writes Vicky. Coffee is life. Omar, definitely appreciate your honesty. Honesty, yes. Billy Joel lyric coming up from Coffee is Life. Honesty is such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. So true, Vicky. Excuse me, Coffee is Life. Pardon me. It's so true, Coffee is Life. Billy Joel sang it best. I actually have to go and I'm gonna go play that song in a few minutes. Off the album 52nd Street. See, I know my Billy Joel albums too. Um, I'm a big jazz fan, by the way, but I'm talking about Billy Joel because particularly that song, The Stranger, based on what we've been talking about here today, is a really relevant, pertinent song. And it speaks to some of the issues I've talked about. But Billy Joel is an excellent songwriter. There's a documentary on HBO that's been streaming over the last few months about Billy Joel. Two-part documentary. It's about 4 hours long, or 3.5 hours when you add the two parts together, about his life and about the music and about his journey and about his struggles. Billy Joel, who is fighting right now, having some really tough times. You can go look up Billy Joel and some of the struggles he's had with his health and very serious stuff actually, with him. But I do hope that he pulls through and is able to recover and be himself and be back to who he is. I'm not telling him rush back to the stage, although I'd love to see him. Never actually seen him in concert, but the first order of business for Billy Joel is to keep fighting on and keep doing the great, keep fighting the great way that you do in these times of challenge for you, Billy. Thank you. Coffee is life. This is so true. Omar, what is the book again? Writes Vicky. The book that I've been talking about today predominantly is this book, Rethinking Sex, A Provocation by Christine Ember. I may be giving this away to paid subscribers when I do resume the giveaways in the next few weeks for paid subscribers only. So as a paid subscriber, um, you would be your name would be put in a hat for this book. I'm gonna actually announce that I'm gonna give this book away. It's gonna be one of the giveaways when I resume the giveaways in the next few weeks. This book will be one of the things for paid subscribers that I'll be giving away. This book is a very important book. Christine Ember, this sister right here, writes about this. It's a book that everyone needs to read. Um, and it deals with a lot of issues, one of which I've touched on. Um, and I had ideas about even before I read Christine Ember's book. Really, really important. So, yeah, and I mentioned her book and a couple of quotes from it in the essay Graham Platner and Us, which I have published today on my Substack. Please give that a read. I would appreciate it if you do. Thank you very much indeed. And Vicky, thank you. Sorry, Omar, I typed your name wrong. Oh, that's all right. Typoed your name. At least you got it right. Omar is the name. Listen, look, it's okay. I'm certainly not grading you on your spelling. But coffee is life. Excuse me. Coffee is life. Thank you very much. Um, it's amazing how so many people, there are people I remember in my childhood who would deliberately misspell my name and mispronounce it. Anyway, but I know that's not deliberate. Making assumptions are so wrong, says Vicky. Yes, I agree. I totally agree with that. Um, Vicky talking, these comments were earlier around dates, men paying for dates and spending money, and some men, many men still in this day and age, expecting that somehow a woman is now going to surrender herself and comply. I mean, there's a whole lot of coercion with sex too. That a woman sometimes will feel that she has to have sex with a man. That's another thing too, coercion, which is just, deals with consent and far worse um, in terms of the realm that belongs over here with rape. Um, and Vicky's very visceral about this too. Bullshit, Vicky writes. You pay as a man, she's writing. It means nothing. It is not it is not any automatic yes. Absolutely. Men have to be re-educated to understand that because you're spending X amount of money or spending money on a date for a woman, that doesn't mean at all that you're going to have sex with that woman or that she wants sex with you. And if there is some kind of arrangement, hopefully you as a man and the woman would have a conversation about that kind of thing. Duh, right? But that's not an automatic yes. In fact, assume that it's a no, unless you've had some kind of prior conversation. You and the woman have dialogued this and talked about this and been open with this. And there are some women out there who do have sex with the man who pays for the date. And there is a subset of women that do that too. I'm not going to sit here Pollyannish and pretend that doesn't happen. It does. But to Vicky's point specifically, there is no automatic fuck me because I'm paying for a date or because some man is paying for a date with a woman, right? There is no automatic fuck me on that. There isn't. Hello, J.E. McAuliffe. Hello, she writes from Rochester, New York. Had a class. Sorry for attending late up. Not a problem. J.E., you can watch this later on as we approach the 3 hour mark. I'm going to get through these comments because the battery now is going a bit low. That doesn't mean much, Omar, unless one says it. We do not get it. Um, yep, we do, Omar. Yeah, I know the problem with me reading comments out from 15 minutes ago is that sometimes I lose the context of what people say because I didn't read the comments out in real time. So, Vicky, I'm sorry that I'm a little bit confused about the thing where you say that doesn't mean much, Omar, unless someone says it. We do not get it. I think that's probably referring back again to the same thing I just said about what you wrote about men paying for dates for women, and that doesn't, perhaps you're saying that that doesn't mean much unless one says it. We do not get it or do not give consent. Again, you can clarify that for me, Vicky. I'm sorry I read out your comment way too behind here. And Len agrees with you. I've brought up my son, writes Chrissy, to know that no means no. We've had deep discussions on consent based on the violence we both experienced with his father. Chrissy, thank you for doing that. Because, that conversation is something that needs to be had with boys, especially. It's not done nearly enough. I think it's probably being done more now in households in the United States than it used to be because boys are brought up to just do whatever the fuck they want and put all these notches on their belts, while girls are brought up to be nice and not to say this and not to do that and not to do things with clothing and showing. So, that's the toxic, horrific way that many parents, bring up their kids or have in the past brought up their children. And it's time to end that. And it's time to put some demands on boys and to tell boys that they have to respect girls, respect themselves, and understand that you can't just take everything in this world, right? And we have to also fight against a patriarchy that tells a boy or a man that this is yours and you can objectify a woman. And listen, objectifying happens, okay? Men and women objectify each other, okay? What I'm saying is that boys, kids, girls, we all have this arena where we have to reframe the circuitry about how we bring up kids in this world, especially boys. Let's see here. Let me read some more of these. Aaron needs to have enough insight into themselves. This is Vicky, in order to do that and a level of maturity and some ONR needs. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is there, Vicky, but you write to have enough insight into themselves in order to do that and a level of maturity and some experience. The mental anguish comes along after or later, writes Vicky. Thank you, Vicky, for your comments. Susan Huffland has joined us. Hello, Susan. Omar writes, Vicky, that is asking for a check in that doesn't happen often. I wonder if that you're talking about the dating and the man getting the check. Asking a check-in. Oh, yes, asking for a check-in with the woman after you've had sex with her. I think when I talked about that earlier, that they need for men, for people to check in with each other, from men, and I'm talking again, straight men and straight women to check, and in any, but because I'm a straight man, I'm saying this to check in with that woman that you're having sex with, right? That you're having intimacy with, that you're checking in with her, either before, during, and after, and maybe a day after, or 2 days after, or certainly after the aftercare, and then a day after that, and get in touch with her, or whomever you are, whatever the dimension of the relationship is, whether it's marriage or anything else, or casual or whatever else. And Vicky, I think, is writing, asking for that check-in. That does not happen often. And Vicky, I agree. I know that doesn't happen often. I know that doesn't. I know. I don't even want to go any further than why I know, but I know that doesn't happen very often. Well, I know that doesn't happen very often. Um, I'm so tempted to explain that further, but I don't think I need to. The Kennedys, yes, writes Vicky. Yeah, the Kennedys, yeah. For those who think the Kennedys walked on water, and there's many in this world who do, Please read the book The Dark Side of Camelot by Seymour Hersh. Hers, S as in Sam, H. The Dark Side of Camelot. I've been reading that book. Ooh, JFK was not this saint that you have been told he is. And RFK Jr., well, need we say more? Ted Kennedy, need we say more? Ted Kennedy for sure. I block folks. Yeah, yeah. I do too, Vicky. Some of them have been subscribers and paid subscribers. I've definitely risked that because that's more important to me than the payments are. Or some of those people have taken it upon themselves to unpaid subscribe. Fine. No one's forcing you to subscribe. I ask for your subscriptions, paid or unpaid. But again, I have no problem blocking paid subscribers. I've actually done that. Because foolishness is foolishness and bullshit is bullshit. And like you, Vicky, I don't play around with stuff like this. Times are too short. Life is too short for this. Um, so there we go. Vicky, thank you. I agree with you, Omar, writes Vicky, about Ted Kennedy. Absolutely should be behind bars. Um, the Kennedy men, writes Chrissy, got protected by the white patriarchy so much. Yes, they certainly have. People talk about Donald Trump all the time, and I'm not saying this is both sides because it's not. This is about an evaluation of the white patriarchy because that's exactly what it is, the white patriarchy. So before anyone goes, oh, you're both siding it. Fuck that. I'm not both sides in a goddamn thing. I am talking about an overarching white systemic patriarchy that goes beyond left and right, like these really juvenile categories, left, right, Democrat, really stupid things, right? And obviously we're going to vote Democratic this November, right? Right? That's what we're going to do. But again, there's a larger system that produces these things. And we have to see that instead of getting caught up in this bullshit. It's the white male patriarchy that Chrissy talks about. And Chrissy's a white woman, I believe, saying this, right? Not just Ted, but JFK as well. Now, Chrissy wrote this before I talked about the dark side of Camelot and talked about JFK. Oh, yeah, JFK was protect. All of these folks, they're a product of all of this stuff. JFK, Ted Kennedy, RFK, RFK Jr. as well, all of them. And I'm not saying, listen, the Kennedy family, Eunice Shriver, and others, they've done some positive things. Now, there's an Ethel Kennedy. Those are the matriarchs. Those are the, right? But people, and Rose Kennedy, right? But Joseph Kennedy, oh my God. I mean, yeah, study the Kennedys, folks. What about Joseph Kennedy, for God's sakes, and his affiliations with Nazi Germany, and how he was a raging anti-Semite? Talk about him. Go look him up and do some research and reading on Joseph Kennedy, the father. I am your father. Luke, the Force is not with you. Please go look up Joseph Kennedy and find out what he was up to in the 1940s and 30s. Excuse me. Vicky writes, and rabbis, no religion is left out. Yeah, bullshit. Totally. I agree, Omar, writes Vicky. Omar, did you block me? No, I didn't block you, Vicky. It is all about power, anger, rage, violence, writes Vicky. It is not for sex. Yeah, very important to keep reiterating this. And I think people need to post this on their Substacks and on their social media accounts more often. Rape is about power and anger and control and rage and violence. It's not about sex at all. Never has been, never will be. And any movie or any television series or any book or any story or article that attempts to blur this idea that there's, oh, maybe she means yes when she really means, maybe she means yes when she's saying, I mean, that's all bullshit. That's a male gaze thing. Again, male Gaze. And Maybe there's 1% of women, or half a percentage of women, or two women in the world that might be like that. But I assure you, women are not like that, mate. That's just nonsense. There is no, you know what I mean? All these things this rape culture perpetuates, right? It's just despicable. And it makes us all less safe, especially makes women less safe. And people make movies about this. Sex is intimacy. Yes, it is giving and receiving. Vicky, thank you. Sex is absolutely about that. Intimacy is a huge thing. It's a broad umbrella. Sex is part of that intimacy. Um, I think a lot of people, I imagine, look at sex as a completely kind of, an act that's divorced from intimacy and divorced from all these other things. People have sex for all kinds of reasons, but there is a sacredness about sex, giving and receiving, communicating. It's about understanding. It's about empathizing. It's about being patient. Patience. It's about connecting, cultivating. It's about communicating. It's about collaborating. About all those things. Thank you, Vicky, for that. Very much so, Omar. And projection. Yeah, lots of projection in the world, Vicky, 100%. Charmaine Wilkes has joined us. Hello, Charmaine. We need to learn to think and have some compassion. We do not know, writes Vicky. Thank you. Kink shaming is another form of victim blaming. Yeah, it is. Chrissy, that's the other thing. And Chrissy, thank you for bringing that up, because I talked about the box over here, right? And how would people like it if we opened up that box to what we do in our very personal lives sexually, and throw that out there for people to go point at? Oh, you like kink? Well, there's something wrong with you. Or you like kink? Well, you deserve this. Oh, you like to dress up? Well, you deserve that. Because I talked about role play, right? And so we do this. People, we do this. And that is entirely consensual, and sometimes maybe that goes to zones where it's not. But people will have, hopefully, a communication about those kinds of things. Safe words, non-safe words, what people like. That's what people like in the consensual people do things in their bedroom thing, right? But there is a lot of shaming around these things. And there again, you're looking at a puritanical society that places judgment on that and then blames a woman. Let's say there's a woman in this chat who likes kink. So you like kink, and? But there are people out there who will go, ooh, well, you deserve this. You deserve what happened to you. Because people, again, are not facing their own issues, and they're projecting their personal issues onto someone else who is more comfortable with who they are as a sexual being, as a human being. Chrissy, thank you very much indeed. I totally agree with you on that. I worry about this for my granddaughter, writes Vicky. I read your review of the invite. Thank you, Vicky, for reading it. I know I probably say a few things in there. I don't know that I really give anything in away. When I write movie reviews, I like not to give away things. It's hard sometimes to review a movie without reviewing content of it. I think that's pretty difficult to do, because that's not really a movie review, is it? But you don't want to give away things that happen, but you do have to give away some things that happen in a film, in a degree, but you don't want to give away the resolution of what happens in the film. That's another important thing. But thanks for reading the invite review that I did. That film is out now in theaters. If you care to watch it, please read my review of it. It's on my Substack as well. Maybe you've already seen it. Maybe you're interested in seeing it. Maybe you won't bother going to the theater. Maybe you wait till it comes on streaming, or maybe you won't ever see it at all. But I do find that movie, at least in some ways, to be interesting in the discussion of what goes on here. That also aligns, I think, in some ways, and I'm not giving anything away because this doesn't happen in the movie, but also aligns with what Chrissy said as well about kink shaming. So I've 10% of the battery left. It's been over 3 hours, but I'm going to finish these comments through and then I'm going to say goodbye. Vicky writes, Omar, I do believe the signals still go on regarding signals with bars, signals regarding women calling their friends, their girlfriends during a date. They get up from the table or the dinner table, the restaurant or whatever, and call their friends, hey, look, I'm here, everything's fine. You don't have to worry. That still goes on, Vicky writes. I agree. I said this earlier. Sorry, I think it means that we need to go and learn to go to a bar or restaurant by one's self. About women who go to bars, I talked about this as well, the stigmatization that happens. Women either going to bars by themselves or women not going to bars because women who do not want to go to bars by themselves for safety reasons with men, or also because they don't want to be thought of as someone who's there for sex. And maybe a woman is at a bar for sex. I mean, there are women that go to bars and they would like sex, right? There are some women that do that, and that's not a wrong thing either. If a woman wants to do that, she should do what her autonomy allows for her. She wants to be autonomous with her body and her being, that's up to her. I don't get to judge that. I don't get to judge that. And nor should people out there, but I don't get to judge that. Good for her. If that's what she wants. If she doesn't want that, good for her as well. But if a woman says that she's not interested, if you're a man, leave her the fuck alone. Go move on, right? Don't follow her out into a parking lot like a man did to a black woman a few years ago and shoot her in her head, killing her because she said no to you. In fact, her no should not be a death sentence because there's unresolved issues in that man that he has to deal with, rejection issues, whatever. But that does not give you license to take someone's life because that woman has a right to her autonomy and her safety and her life. And no man should take that away from her or anyone else. That was a great point, J.E. McAuliffe writes about the assumptions most men make about women in bars. Yeah. Thank you, J.E., for saying that. I do love compliments. But there are all these behaviors that go on. And I think, J.E., a man should rather just talk about those things with a woman. Even if the woman's at a bar, if he, in a respectful way, you know, but some people don't do that either, but in an honest and adult way, say, look, I'm interested in you. Are you interested in any sex or anything like that or whatever, however you put that, right? I'm just being open with you. I would like to be intimate with you. I'd like to da 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 da. If the woman says no, she says no. But, there's a woman that might say yes. And so rather than have the assumption, just be an adult in the room. The word consenting adults, right? We are adults in this world. People can say yes and people can say no. Just abide by what they say to you. Thank you, JE. Brilliant strategy to have a plan. I agree. That check-in is so important. The check-in that women do with other women, the check-in that men should do with other women, that men should do with women when they're having sex, no matter what the dimension of the relationship is. I think it's all very important. Gail Howell has joined us. Thank you, Vicky. Gail Howell has joined us. The assumption of the ignorant, self-serving, self-entitled misogynists. Yeah, so many of them out there. So many of them, JE, thank you. Is this only for paid subscribers? The giveaway of the book is only for paid subscribers, yes. When I give things away on Substack, it's only for paid subscribers. So this giveaway, anything I give away, Vicky, is for paid subscribers only. So you have to be a paid subscriber to be put into a hat and a name of paid subscribers, one of those names drawn out of the hat at random to win this book. This will be a giveaway coming up in the next few weeks. So yes, the answer to that is yes. Omar, can you see me? See you where? As in meet you? As in see you bring you up on this Substack chat as to can you see my comments? I don't know what you mean, Vicky. First of all, I can see your comments. Obviously, I'm reading them out. But when you say can you see me question mark, are you talking about I don't know what you mean. I really don't know what you mean. Do you mean shall I bring you up on Substack? Visually? I don't know what you mean. So can you please clarify that for me? Thank you, Vicky. You mentioned Roland Martin, writes Len. I am familiar with him. I've listened to him for quite a while and I really enjoy his take on things and I agree with him. Len, thank you. Yeah, Roland Martin, please. Thank you, Len, for doing that, for checking in with Roland Martin, going watching him, subscribing to him. Roland Martin Unfiltered. That brother is someone you need to be following on social media, especially on YouTube. He's value for money and free subscriptions or paid ones to Roland Martin. Please. Very important, especially now. Very important. It gives you a lot of information that you don't hear anywhere else and a lot of thoughtful discussions. He's talked about domestic violence. He's talked about what happened with Justin Fairfax earlier this year, killing both his estranged, the woman he is estranged from as a spouse, and killing himself. That happened this year, folks. And there's a lot of back and forth in areas of the black community around that. And there was some real strict divisions among some black women and some black men and some other black women. Roland Martin addresses those issues and goes deep with things like that and so many other things that affect different black communities that you need to be aware of. And, Roland goes to places that a lot of people won't go to. And he got a lot of heat for discussing the issues of Justin Fairfax, the former lieutenant governor of Virginia, and talked about mental health. And he got raked over the coals and was accused of justifying domestic violence, which he wasn't trying to do at all. You can go find that whole episode where he gives a whole forum to talking about domestic violence and getting help, and for black men in those situations getting help, because black women, quite frankly, are the number one sufferers of domestic violence by proportionality in this country. And that's an issue that needs to be given serious discussion and solutions. And Roland Martin was actually platforming and providing solutions. And he got hammered by some black women, not all, but some around that. So Len, thank you very much. D. Batista's joined us. Hello, D. I love Billy Joel, writes Vicky. I saw Billy Joel open for Bette Midler, writes Gail Howell. Wow. Thank you for that, Gail. His special on HBO was great. Yes, it was. That's the one I was talking about earlier, the two-part documentary. He also, I think he may have done a concert special on HBO as well that you may be referring to as well, Vicky. Thank you. I was on briefly when you were on late last night. Hi, Gail, writes Vicky. Vicky writes, I have sheltered women in domestic violence for sure. Vicky, thank you for doing that and for helping women. It's something that we all need to do and do more of. If we feel comfortable doing that, we should do it. I think we should do it. More of us, men, women will do that more often, obviously. I don't think that many women in domestic violence situations are going to be inclined to trust a man to do that. But again, thank you, Vicky. We do not know what we do. It is dangerous. Made is a good film. MAID, Made is a good film. I don't know which that is. I've referred to several films. Made is a good film, writes Vicky. Hello, Vicky, again. And Vicky, tell me when you said, can you see me? I don't know what that is. Or just connect with me at some other time after this chat. I'm not sure what you mean. Or just clarify it here. Um, Let's see. Leaving domestic violence, writes Chrissy, is the most dangerous time for the woman and her kids if they share with any abuser. Yeah. If they share any with the abuser. Yeah. Chrissy, that's exactly what I had mentioned earlier. And I know you made these comments earlier. Again, people need to really recognize that people who are survivors of domestic violence, who have children, and again, it's usually women, right? Overwhelmingly women. They're in extremely precarious and dangerous scenarios. And so it's not easy to leave. It's not easy to do certain things. There are economic considerations. There's children to consider. There's all kinds of things to consider. And it makes it very challenging for a woman to leave. It's very challenging. And Vicky, and Chrissy, you're obviously speaking from the experiences that you've shared with us today. So, Chrissy, thank you for that. We all fail at times, writes Vicky. So, with maturity and insight, we grow and learn. I love that comment, Vicky. You know, that's a really compassionate and honest thing to say. It's the truth. We all fail at times. We all do. Right? I know. I'd like to think I'm perfect. I certainly know I haven't violated any human being. I know that. It's a low bar to even be saying things like that, because that should be without saying for anybody. But I'm not naive. I know that this happens to people, and I know people this has happened to. I know people this has happened to. So do you. And some of those people who do know this also are in this chat, who bravely have shared that information with us today, and who have really been courageous to do that and to talk about these things, right? It's very, very difficult to talk about and very painful. So thank you to those of you who are survivors here, who have felt emboldened and compelled and empowered to share that information with us here today and with yours truly. Thank you very much indeed. And Vicky, that comment I love. We all fail at times, so with maturity and insight, we grow and learn. I love that comment. I really love that. That warms my heart. We do fail, right? And some of us fail longer and harder than others do. And others of us, we hopefully learn from our failures. Some of us, though, repeat the failure. And there's lots of different reasons why that might happen. Leaving DV, domestic violence, writes Vicky, is so challenging and so hard. Not easy at all. There are no quick fixes. I agree, Vicky. Gail says it's a very difficult situation. Um, it needs professional help. Things, trying to leave might come back to bite you, writes Vicky. Yes, I have been listening, writes Vicky. JE, nearly all my donations in business has been towards African Americans and LGBTQ plus people, and business is a good quality character. I have so much trust for these communities, so much more trust for these communities, both for showing great character and behavior, writes JE. In the face of hate, being empathetic towards human beings, being victimized for showing variation from racist, homophobic, transphobic bigots, and not trusting anyone that looks like me, writes JE, as far as being white like, writes J.E., seeing how treacherous and conniving white, she writes, people have been towards others as well and myself. Thank you for your compassion and voice. Thank you, J.E., for your comment. That is truly appreciated by yours truly. I do love compliments. I don't pretend not to. I'm not this bashful person. No, take your praise. You should. And if you are comfortable with who you are, you should take your praise. When somebody compliments you, take that on board. Now, some people may not be sincere in their compliments, but look, if people compliment you, take that on board, that they actually do mean it 99.9% of the time. And it's not jealousy motivated or anything else, it's that they mean it. So thank you, JE, for that, and thank you all for your compliments and things like that. I do love that, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you, and I respect you. In person being late is different than on Substack. Absolutely, Vicky. Oh my God, yeah. Absolutely. It is. That's why I say if you're late on Substack, you can always watch this again. I'm not going to snarl at you or block you for being late on Substack. Oh dear. No, no, no. But Vicky writes, without therapy, I would be dead. Vicky writes, Vicky, there's a lot of people who sadly and too badly do not recognize that therapy is an important thing. Not everyone's going to do it. Um, but yeah, these things are really important, Vicky. Thank you. There are so many different therapies. Yes, there are, writes Vicky. And finding the right therapist is always a challenge. Vicky, that's so true. Oh my God. Couples therapy. I can speak from a personal experience many years ago. Oh dear, oh dear. At the time, this is many moons ago now. I was like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck? Who is this therapist? This is bullshit. And so it was like, nope, we're done with that person. This is many, many years ago. What? So yeah, Vicky, 110% concur. Something my ex-husband could not get. We were married, writes Vicky, and this is what she says, something my ex-husband could not get. We were married for over 35 years. He was not my first abuser. Sigh. Vicky, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Vicky. Oh my gosh, my heart really aches for you. Um, Man, if I saw you, I'd give you a hug. But I know a hug does not erase the deep pain that you experience every day around the traumas that you've experienced and around what happened to you. So, Vicky, thank you for trusting here, trusting me, trusting this forum with your comment. I'm so very sorry. And for your courage, I respect you. I respect who you are as a person always. Um, and for any other survivor in here, um, thank you for trusting me and trusting this community. Thank you, Vicky, for that. Disassociation is powerful, writes Vicky. Yeah, it is. JE writes, there are good and bad people. What they look like and who they love has nothing to do with what determines a person of quality and compassion. JE, well said. Integrity matters, D writes. Yes, D, I am with you 110%. Integrity does matter. And if you have integrity and character, you're willing to risk so-called alienating or pushing aside people who are fucking around. And I don't mean fucking around as in sex. I'm talking about fucking the hell around with shit and with your program and what you need to do and who are just wasting your time and who are just being bullshit. Integrity matters from in that realm and many others. And Vicky, and D, thank you very much for that. We get to decide, writes Vicky, to discern, to have integrity for ourselves and for others. And I agree, Vicky continues. Getting older brings that no time for BS. I'm gonna probably have to leave the comments soon because my battery is really coming down. JE writes, agree, we can decide whether we care to actually have integrity, not simply say and pretend to have it. Agreed, JE. Actions speak louder than the words do. Thank you. Sorry, my battery is low. Got to run. Watch the rest of this podcast later and the one on Platner. Thank you, Len. Take care. I'm going to have to go too very shortly. Without hope, there is not much. Writes Vicky D. Writes, we must be solutions oriented to improve ourselves in our democracy. Writes D. Thank you, D. So very true. If you don't have integrity, you shouldn't be trusted. Once you lose it or break it, it's gone. Yes. Same thing with trust, as you said, JE, exactly. I have a running conversation here with Omar and all who are here. I wish you all could be here and hear hugs and love to all. Vicky, thank you. Oh, I've had too much experience with the crap in my life, writes Vicky. Chrissy, the older I get, the more discerning I am on who I have relationships with. Thank you, Chrissy. We began talking about Nolan Wells, and he was only 18, right? Chrissy is not 18 and talked just now in this chat about the older she gets, the more discerning she is on here with who the relationships she has with people. Yeah, you got to be really discerning. You have to be. And yeah, maybe you might hurt someone's feelings, but so what? It's about your own self-preservation and your deciding that there are people in your life that you gravitate to and people that you don't, that you have no use for anymore. And those relationships change. As we get older, as we change, as we evolve or don't, those things change for us. So if there's people in your life right now who are dead weight, who just don't contribute any positivity or light or encouragement or maybe envious of you, get rid. Get rid of them, right? I mean, seriously, I don't mean take them out back and do a mob hit on them. I mean, adios. I'm only telling you. That's up to you. If they're dear friends that you can't disentangle yourself from, but if they are dear friends that you realize, and I know people in this situation who I've had friends I've known for decades, and then suddenly they realize, fuck, these people are. I've just got to let them go. You have to do that. You have to do that. Have the confidence to believe that you can do it because you can. Angie, Decadence, I'm allergic to them. My peace of mind is priceless. Yeah, on the same subject, Angie, thank you. If I learned anything, is that the company we keep absolutely affects, shapes, and can potentially determine our character completely. JE, well said. I totally agree with you. And others like Vicky do as well, as does Angie, who agrees with Vicky on these matters. Judy has joined us. Hello, Judy. Hello to you. Nice to see you. I've got the name and the author of the book. Thank you very much, writes Vicky on that. Please do not grade my spelling. LOL. I'm not grading your spelling. I'm just thankful you're here, Vicky. Thank you.